Hey, how's it going? You are here for Heavy Art Talk, and today I am pumped. I have Dan Bones joining me. Dan is extremely talented. He is a tattooer in LA. He works at a Memoir Tattoo. He's also a musician, an illustrator. I'm excited to get into all those things. On the illustration side, some of the bands and various institutions, I guess you could say, would include Victim of Fire, Invocation Ritual, Hive Smasher, Psycho Las Vegas, St. Vitus Bar, and the Acheron. He pronounced it backstage, and now I'm like blanking on exactly how you pronounce that. But anyways, without further ado, Dan, what's going on, man?
Hello.
What was I blanking on there?
The Acheron.
Acheron. I was like, I'm saying it. I'm like, I knew I was saying it wrong.
No, all good. No, the Acheron was a metal venue in Brooklyn that was attached to a bar called the Anchored Inn, which is still there. Anchored Inn actually just celebrated their 15-year anniversary, which is very stoked for them. And the Acheron was the music venue that was attached to it, run by a guy named Bill Dozer, who's currently out in the desert out here in California, and he's doing a lot of booking out there right now. So anytime you see like a very, very sick metal show that's happening in Yucca Valley, in Joshua Tree, like it's most likely done by Bill Dozer. It's almost guaranteed that Bill Dozer, who did the Acheron, is putting it on.
That's like the coolest name, man. I love that.
Yeah.
In terms of size, the Acheron, was it smaller than St. Vitus Bar? About the same.
Yeah, it was a little bit smaller. It was definitely a little more of a punk bar. I mean, when it started, it was, extremely, extremely DIY. And, that was very much the ethics and the ethos that they had. I have so many stories about that place. Gotten my nose broken at a show there once. Yeah.
You can't hear like a grumbling of a French bulldog, can you?
No, but I saw a French bulldog while you were doing the intro, and I want to know who that is.
Here, let me see if I can grab him here. Hey, bud. Come here. Come here. This is Cosmo. Hey,
Oh, my
buddy.
God.
There he is.
Cosmo, hello.
Well, now I bet you can hear it now. Breathing.
That little short snout grumble.
Hey, big guy. Let's relax a little bit. All right. Yeah, St. Vitus. I've been to Brooklyn a couple of times. I went and saw it before it closed down, and I remember like high school and college and stuff. Like there was a lot of the like metal injection footage of bands playing there, and the way they filmed it always made it look like it was bigger than it was. And then you get there, and it's very narrow. It was a tiny venue. But from the outside, it just seemed like, oh man, this is like the mecca of heavy metal, and it can be even if it's small. But I was astonished how small it is when I went there.
I miss that place every day. Like I don't even live in Brooklyn anymore, but it was such an institution. It was such a really, really special place. Dave Castillo, Artie, George, all the people that made that place run were phenomenal. They did such a great job with it. I'm glad that they're still booking shows. I know there are rumors of trying to get a new space to bring it back to life. I really hope that happens because it was just such a phenomenal place. Frank Wang is who was doing a lot of the filming at St. Vitus. I know like every show I went to, he was up there behind the camera. Very, very
good
cool
job.
Dude. Oh yeah. I mean, just to chronicle all of that is incredible. That you can just go on YouTube and find like so many shows from that place.
Absolutely. Speaking of music, tradition on the channel is just talking a little bit about that before getting to the visual art side. What have you been listening to lately?
What have I been listening to? A lot of like faster, crusty stuff lately. British band called Rat Cage. Been really into lately. Paranoid from Sweden was a really big fan of. Been listening to a lot of Rotten Sound again, kind of going back through their discography again. The new Converge record that came out last week, definitely have had that on for a while now.
Nice.
Pretty happy with that one. And then just like deep Depeche Mode cuts, as always.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. You gotta balance it out a little bit. In terms of like extreme metal and heavy metal and stuff, do you lean towards like kind of punkier, grindcore, crust kind of stuff in terms of like some of your go-to genres?
Yeah. I think just that like really, really like kind of frantic energy is something that I've always really like gone for in heavy music. So anything that's like very grind adjacent, anything that's very like faster death metal is like the kind of stuff that really does it for me. Things that are a little more like slower, doomier, like I can for sure get behind, but I don't think it's what I normally gravitate toward.
I always find that interesting because it's like I listen to that stuff too, but like
Hmm.
my go-to is definitely like I like mid-tempo, groovier death metal
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and
Hmm.
like I'm like come from drumming background, so
Yeah.
like the
Hmm.
the drums are the first thing I listen to. So I like it
Hmm.
when it's and, blast beats are cool. Like there's so many different variations of it, but I really like creative grooves like Sean Reinhardt kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hmm. Like Human Era Death. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I mean
then
that's
like
my favorite death record. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
like progressive like death metal would probably be like one of my favorite extreme metal genres for sure. Like
Hmm.
I love Cynic, I love Opeth, bands like that.
Hmm.
Those are ones that really got me into it.
Are you a big
Like,
Intronaut fan?
oh yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Those
Hmm.
are some amazing records. I'm blanking on other stuff. I mean, and then like everybody else, I like Blood Incantation a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. There's another Denver band that put a record out within the last 2 years, and I'm almost positive it's at least one member of Blood Incantation is playing in it. Have you heard Black Curse?
Yeah, Black Curse is good. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's as far
I
as
think a
like
couple members might be in that. Yeah.
I know that whole scene is like very very like interwoven, but I couldn't remember who's who in which bands. But I know it's like, is it it's like them and like Spectral Voice
Yeah,
all
Spectral
sharing
Voice
it.
is great. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Um, Again, I do that thing where I'm like, is it Spectral Voice or Spectral Wound? I can never remember.
both are good.
I
So
know.
yeah.
That's why it's so hard, because I'm like, I like both of them. Which one am I talking about? Yeah. But
And,
no, that.
and sorry. And you spent a lot of time in New York, so
Mm,
I think there's a lot of like cool. I mean, I'm only thinking of one on the top of my head, but I really love Krallice. I've been on a big Krallice
yeah.
kick, and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
coming from there.
Yeah. I love those dudes. I mean, Krallice is such a New York institution at this point. Yeah. Lev Weinstein, drummer of Krallice, old friend of mine. I've tattooed that
Amazing
guy a whole
player.
bunch. Amazing player. He's so funny. I mean, he's played in so many bands in New York. A friend of ours actually held Lev Fest a couple of years ago,
Nice.
where he very specifically got, I think it was 4 different bands that Lev played in to just do one show. And that was it. It was nothing but bands that Lev played in. It was like Krallice. God, who was it? Garyon, Krallice, Pyrolatris. Uh, I'm blanking on who else it was, but I mean, Lev has played in so many bands. He's
He
such a
must have
killer
been
drummer.
exhausted by the end of that day, man.
He can do it, but that's the thing about Lev, is he can do it, and
Yeah.
like it doesn't phase him. He's just a machine. Talking about blast beats, that's someone who can do like 60 different variations of a blast beat, and they all sound really interesting and cool.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
I'm like on a kick to like try to collect basically all their albums, and that's a lot at this point. I
they're
have
prolific.
I have like 12 of their. I collect CDs, not vinyl, but I have like
Oh, cool.
12
Yeah.
of them at this point.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's really cool how deep you are in the music scene, and that has kind of like fueled illustration and tattooing. I mean, that's kind of a large topic, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it's just from making good friendships and then naturally networking, just being yourself and being in these places. Is that kind of what you would,
Yeah,
put a pin on to get
I,
to do that?
I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, it's something that I've always really, really loved. And, I was unbelievably spoiled, living in Brooklyn in my like early 20s up until my mid 30s. And I played in bands when I was in my mid 20s up until now. I played a show with Krallice in 2010, I think.
Very cool.
It's just, I possibly how I met those guys. I think I maybe anyway. But yeah, it's something where, I was really fortunate that I've got to play music for a long time at this point. Never at like a particularly high level. But that's sort of the thing is I was playing in a lot of bands in my 20s with a lot of really, really talented musicians that have primarily, a lot of them have all gone on to play in bands that have done really, really well for themselves. And, a lot of these people that I like came up with, basically there was sort of a split where I got into tattooing and just threw everything into it and completely stopped playing music for years. Where it was like, I was just eating, sleeping, breathing, tattooing, and, had this like radical career shift in order to do it and just had to make it work. I started to watch like, friends of mine that used to play in a band called Concussion, Blake Charlton from that band went on to be in Ramming Speed. They went off, toured Europe, put out sick records, played Roadburn. Matt Mutin, who played in that same exact band, currently playing in Woe, currently playing in Glorious Depravity. I watched him go off and like tour nonstop, get to play Roadburn. Mike Dimmitt, Justin Ennis, George, God, I hate him blanking on George's name. We played in Mutilation Rights together 15 years ago. Every one of those dudes has gone off to, put out great records, be on very cool labels, play some really amazing shows, get to tour, get to travel. And, I was always like really, really like, oh man, I like got out like right before like because it's always something that I've wanted to do.
Mutilation Rights, I have one of those records. Really good fucking band, dude. So you were in at a certain point?
I was the first bassist of Mutilation Rights. They asked me to join, I think, the same week as their first show. And this has kind of been a running theme with a lot of bands that I've joined, which is it's always like, hey, we need someone like right now. We have a show. Can you learn this? And it was funny because this must have been 2010, maybe 2011, sometime around then. And it was one of those things where they were like, hey, like we just need you to learn like 3 songs or like 4 songs or something. And the show is in like 6 days. And I was like, no, that's stupid. And they were like, we're opening for Anal Cunt. And just being like 25, I was like, that's the opportunity I don't want to pass up. Let's do it. Like, do I like Anal Cunt now? No. Do I like want to support anything regarding that dude? Absolutely not. But when you're stupid and 25, you're just like, yeah, I want to open for Anal Cunt, sick, because you're dumb, and I have that story. But I got to play some really cool shows with the Mutilation Rights crew. The very, very early iteration of that band. I recorded the first demo with them, and then parted ways for many, many reasons, but we're all very cool. I really like everyone in that band, and I'm pretty sure that respect is mutual. But I was so stoked to see them like really, blow up and like do the thing.
Very cool, man. You talked a little bit about kind of dropping everything and then focus completely on tattooing. So what kind of led to that, and tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. I mean, so the main reason I had moved to New York was to be in the animation world. I had just graduated college. managed to get a job at an animation studio in Manhattan. And, it was basically the 2008 recession came along and shuttered the studio I was working at, cratered that whole industry for so long. So, my background as an animator, my background in the film world, all of that stuff was just kind of like useless as far as getting my career back on track for a while. And I had been getting into some illustration work. So I had been doing illustration work for like, smaller clients, like, doing t-shirts for some bands, doing some like very, very minor, like, kind of commercial illustration work. And I had a lot of friends that were like, you'd be good at tattooing. And more importantly than that was I was actually dating a girl who was the shop assistant at a shop called New York Adorned. And, being like 23, 24 years old and, getting to get kind of thrown into the world of tattooing by being a shop rat at New York Adorned was a huge deal. Where I had grown up in central Massachusetts, tattooing was illegal until the year 2000. So, all through high school and everything, my experience with tattooing was it's what you do on spring break when you go to New Hampshire. You get like a little shady Tinkerbell tattoo. You get like a star on your hip. It was never. I didn't realize how much of an art form it was until, I basically got to have this experience where I got to hang out at New York Adorned, where, everyone that worked at that shop, almost 20 years ago now, has gone on to become a legendary tattoo artist, and, were at the time as well. Steph Temez was over there. Thomas Hooper was over there. Timothy Hoyer, Brian Randolph. The list just goes on and on and on. Shinji,
Timothy Hoyer's right there.
I know you did an episode with Timothy. You did an episode with Thomas Hooper, yeah?
Thomas, yeah.
Right.
I don't have any of his art on standby though, but yeah, Thomas is sick.
Oh yeah, but no, I see the Timothy Hoyer pieces back there. They're so cool. He's such a phenomenal tattooer and such a huge influence on me.
Very cool, man.
Sorry, I'm getting like so windy.
I distracted you there, but so you were hanging out there, and then what led to like apprenticeship and giving it a really shot there?
So to kind of tie this very long-winded story together is I was not getting work in the field that I had come to New York for. I had a lot of people that were really pushing me to get into tattooing, and I suddenly had access to like a lot of really incredible role models. Like I was getting tattooed by Timothy Hoyer in like 2008. And that was what really kind of pushed me to be like, you know what, let me give this a shot, because otherwise I'm just going to be a bike messenger. I'm going to be a furniture mover. I'm just going to do like the random kind of odd jobs that I'm doing in New York right now to like make rent and stay afloat. Managed to pull it off. I don't know.
So then, I guess how long would you say you've been tattooing then? Because there's a period of apprenticeship and stuff. Are you about 15 years, 16 years doing it, or?
So I first started tattooing professionally in the end of 2010. My first job at like a real shop. Real is in quotation marks, I don't know. But my first job at a shop was 2010. So a little over 15 years I've been doing this professionally.
That's awesome. What are some of the observations you've had with how the industry's changed in the past 15 years? I feel like a lot of people say it's went for the worse or it's gone better. And it's kind of like whatever you're feeling that day, it feels like sometimes when I listen to tattooers and stuff, but what do you think?
So many observations, of course, but I think this is something that I really, truly, truly, really love about tattooing, and something that is so magical about it is that it is a shifting dialogue. every single day you need to reassess, what your take on something is, how you feel about a certain thing. And it's always going to change. And there's a constant dialogue happening about, what the industry is, what our jobs as tattooers is, and, what our role is, how much of the industry, should you have an opinion about, how much of the industry are you just like, I am here as a servant to the industry. Does it do any good to be like the kids coming in today?
Yeah.
uh, no, I mean, it's radically different, I think, from when I got started, and I'm ultimately super, super grateful that I got in when I did. I managed to get in at a time before the internet was such a huge part of everyone's identity.
Yeah.
I was tattooing right around when I got my first smartphone. Like when I was starting this beforehand, that wasn't a thing. If you wanted to be on the internet, you had to go home and sit in front of your computer. And I think, people that were getting into any type of art form, whether it be music, whether it be tattooing, illustration, painting, the list goes on. Before we had these like really, really like ingrained internet identities that, take over so much of our lives, there was a lot more room for failure, which I think is
Yeah.
a kind of a weird way to put it. But honestly, I think, we had a lot more room to push beyond our boundaries in ways that, I think people are really afraid to do nowadays, where it's going to be on the internet forever. Even if people aren't giving you shit for it today, 10 years down the road, someone's going to dig that up and be like, look at this fucking garbage you put out. And I think that's a very real fear that, people that want to get into tattooing today are having, where you can't just exist in your own, kind of incubation space to become, a better artist, a better tattooer. Everything you're doing has to be a part of your, your internet brand identity and whatnot. So you just have to start out the gate either really fucking good, or you need to somehow embrace not being good. And so this is something that I have observed a lot in modern tattooing, where I think there are a lot of tattoo styles coming out from a lot of newer tattooers, and like, I want to give people space to grow. I want to give people space to do their thing and get weird. But I think there are a lot of people embracing this notion that like, I don't have, anything I do that's going to be terrible is going to be public. So I'm just going to be publicly terrible, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to embrace it. And you'll see a lot of people like really making terrible line work, like genuinely, like intentionally very shaky line work, like very, very like sketchy, hasty, kind of uninformed, uneducated sort of permanent marks on people, and being like, no, that's the style. Like, that is it. And this is what people want. This is what I can offer. And I am wholeheartedly going to own it. And this is the thing. And I have a hard time figuring out whether or not I absolutely fucking hate that and I'm really bummed about it, or if I'm just like, you're doing what you can to get in. I don't know. I don't want to be a gatekeeper in this industry. I think
Not everybody has to be one. There's some people, the thing is, you obviously know a lot more about the subject than me, but I do find tattoo history and tattoo culture really interesting from the outside. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of cool things to learn from how things used to be done, and like traditional tattooing and Japanese tattooing, and like the different schools of thought, and the apprenticeship process and all that. Like, I like the blue collar work your ass off aspect of it. There's some aspects of
Yes.
it that it's like, okay, maybe leave in the past, but there's some parts that I think, especially the work ethic and earning your stripes and like respect, like
Hmm.
those tenets mean a lot to me, even though I'm not a tattooer. I kind of think about those from an illustration perspective.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think, you are such an accomplished illustrator yourself. I mean, you understand what that work ethic, takes, like what it means to, really dedicate yourself to a craft. And what you just said right there, you really hit the nail on the head where there is so much respect that tattooing as a craft and as a culture uh, deserves.
Yeah.
Where yeah, I don't think me having much of an opinion on where it's going now is going to alter where it's going. But I think you did bring up a really good point that I wholly swear by, which is that this is a very blue collar craft, and I'm someone who came up doing commercial roofing with my dad ever since I was a kid. Like I was a bike messenger, I was a furniture mover, I've done landscaping, like I'm used to this very, very blue collar world. And then, especially living in a town like New York for so long, it is a service industry. Tattooing is absolutely a service industry. And being in a town like New York, which is a service industry town, you really get to build a big community that way. And I think a lot of what I hold very, very valuable about tattooing, of dedicating yourself to a craft, being of service to your clients, is in direct contrast to this modern notion of you have to treat yourself like a brand. You have to market yourself like a brand. You need to have this online identity where, you are a product more than you are a service. And I struggle with that every day, and it goes back to this dialogue that we get to have with ourselves every day of where on that line do I want to sit today? Like, do I really like bite the bullet and start figuring out how to do the TikTok dance to get my clients to come in through the door,
Yeah.
or do I really just knuckle down and just be like a Benedictine monk who's just going to draw nonstop and just keep my head down and do the work and see if the clients will come that way. And there's pros and cons to both. I don't know.
Well, that's you bring up a really good point of what you don't see when, let's say, I'm looking for an artist to get some work from.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of very talented and skilled people, but the part that is harder to showcase just online is, like you said, the service aspect, making people feel comfortable, making people smile, have fun. And then having, been tattooed and stuff, I realize how much that aspect carries like equal weight. So it's like, I want somebody who not only is very skilled, but like, I just feel like I have such a fun time getting it done. And it's so interesting because a tattoo's forever. And if I wasn't tattooed, I might think, oh, well, it's like going to a doctor's appointment. It's not that fun, but I'll just kind of do it. But what you realize, at least what I realize, is that the memory of getting it and your evaluation of the work itself are so linked that you want them both to be a positive experience. So, like, that service aspect, you're totally right, of like the repeat clients, but just like really emphasizing that part and being of good character means so much.
Oh, yeah, exactly right. I mean, then this is something that talking about how my perspective on tattooing has shifted over the years. It's something that in the past like 5 or so years I have really been focused on. Is I've hit a point where I'm really, really fortunate that I've been able to build a clientele that knows who I am, knows the type of work I do, and is coming to me for the skill set that they've seen me, do on other people. So I'm really lucky that, at a point in my career where I'm no longer like really, really, frantically trying to get better at, the technical aspect of the craft.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the things I love about tattooing, or maybe not obviously, but one of the things I love about tattooing is that, there's no ceiling to it. You're always going to improve. You're always going to find ways to do things more efficiently. You're always going to become a better artist if you keep pushing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's figuring out that, yes, you have to give people this really wonderful client experience. And I'm at a point in my career where that's something I really want to focus on. And that's like, being on time for all of your appointments.
Yeah.
Sounds stupid, but I mean, it goes a long way, and, I had years where I was, putting out really, really good work, especially living, when I lived in New York and worked at Eastside Inc. I was booked out 6 weeks to 6 months in advance. I was doing like 2 appointments a day, 4 or 5 days a week. And I was just so frantically stressed out at all times. I got into a habit of never eating my first meal until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was working at the shop until 10, 11 o'clock, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, going home, hanging out with my wife for like an hour, wolfing down like cold leftovers, and then drawing until 4 o'clock in the morning, and doing this every single day. And every single one of my appointments for years started with, "Hi, so sorry I'm late," and it's just, I was really giving everything I had to, doing these drawings and making sure these tattoos were looking good. But I was a fucking mess. Like, I was a very, very stressed out person, and you could just tell I was underslept, underfed, and it's not fun to get tattooed by somebody like that. So I think one of the big reasons why I'm so excited to work at a shop like Memoir Tattoo, working with Kim Say, is that I get to really dictate my schedule more, and I can really give my clients the time that they need to just be fully present for people and really be able to check in with people and give them this client experience that they deserve. And to kind of expound upon that a little more is, one thing I really do appreciate getting to do is people's first tattoos. And it's a sort of thing where I have the luxury of getting a lot of clients that want larger work from me. I have a lot of clients that want me to do, pieces that are my thing. I get some collectors in the door, and I think that's fucking fantastic. I'm so grateful to those people. But what I love about, getting clientele that aren't there for me, they're there because they want their first tattoo, and they don't have, the vocabulary of being someone who's been in a shop before. They don't have that experience of the tattoo world. And, when you do someone's first tattoo, you ultimately are their ambassador to the world of tattooing. So whatever they think about the world of tattooing, whatever they think of tattoo culture, they're getting it from you. And you got to let them know that they're a part of it now. Like, that they're cool, that they're welcome here, that they're now a part of tattoo culture. And it's such a big door to open up, and they are welcome to walk through it. And like, I get excited for people that they can do that. And it's, if someone's like, "Oh, I just, I want like a name this big on my wrist. I want like a little star. I want, like no matter how, small or whatever the design may be, or simplified the design may be, the thought behind it is just as big, if not bigger, than, my clients that are coming to me that are just like, "Love your shit, dude. Give me some sick shit."
Yeah.
And like, obviously I love and respect those clients so much as well. But, there is something really, I take it very seriously when someone decides to come to me for, their first kind of introduction into the world of tattooing, because my competition is Ink Master, and it's tattoos on the internet and on Instagram. And, being the real, like, face-to-face person that you get to interface with is an honor, and it's something I don't take lightly.
That's an awesome point. I don't think a lot of tattooers really talk about that aspect much, but that's like the reality of it, is those smaller kind of first time tattoos, not like, you know, the collector ones. Those are the ones that don't end up on Instagram. So it warps the reality of what it really is like to be a tattooer. Cause I mean, that's like a big part of it, right? Like that's what helps pay the bills, is these smaller, but still meaningful pieces for these people.
Oh, for sure. You know, and I think, you know, you're absolutely right. This is not the sort of thing that, you know, gets the attention on the internet. You know, people are putting out, you know, the work that they want to showcase, you know, in order to, you know, get clients that want to do similar pieces. You know, every once in a while, you know, and this is things that have happened to a lot of you know, other artists, not even just tattooers, but you know, you do something that you're just sort of like, oh, this was like such a slog to get through, or you know, this isn't really indicative of what I want, but it's what the client wanted, and like, you know, I didn't like love or enjoy the process, but here it is, and you know, maybe you'll think it's cool, and then that's the thing that blows up for you, and then you know, like, how are you going to say no when people are coming to the door being like, yeah, I'm willing to give you money for your work and your expertise, but it's not something that you love and don't enjoy. You know, that's
part of being an artist or musician or writer or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
And again, I say this as someone, like, I recognize what a luxury it is to be at a level of art where, you know, people like you, people like me, a lot of the people that you've had on this show. I mean, I let me backtrack. I'm very honored to be on this show, by the way. Like, it does mean a lot that you have invited me on, because the guests that you've had on the show have been sick. You know, a lot of people that you've interviewed before are people that I've looked up to for a long time, you know, people that I've bought artwork for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and I was really honored when you reached out to me. And you know, there was a little bit of like, oh shit, like, no, you talk to like real artists. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Oh man, I'm very excited to have you on. I've heard good things about you personally, but then also your work speaks for itself. And
well, thank you.
I'm kind of the same way, you know, in terms of like the imposter syndrome sometimes, or I get psyched out when it's like artists I really, really look up to. And well, yeah, it's been a cool journey, and I'm glad you're on the episode, man. You're totally worthy.
Oh,
so no hesitation there.
Well, you know, one thing I was really excited to come on and have you know, less about like talking about myself and more about really getting to have a discussion with you about illustrating, and you know, because I'm again so grateful that people come to me for commissioned illustration work and whatnot. But there are so many people that I like really, really, I just see their work and I'm like, how do you do that? Like, you know, and I think you're one of those people where like, you know, I see like your control over line work where I'm just like, I gotta study this guy's work a little more. Like, you know, like, it's so cool.
I appreciate it. What I find is we always admire or love the thing that isn't really the most natural to us. So like right now I'm really trying to spend some time, because I'm between projects, and I'm really trying to work on like my painting technique. And I do have like some painting work that'll be released in a couple months that I'm pretty excited about. But it's like, I feel like I can produce good paintings, but it's not like there's a little more of a struggle, and like a beautiful struggle where, you know, at the watercolor, I lay it down and it's like, all right, now I have to save it. Whereas like with the pen and ink work, it feels more like a puzzle, and I'm constructing it, and it leans on to the aspects of me, like even just my personality, that lend itself for me to be good at that. So like, I'm a pretty patient person. So like people who are maybe not as patient, but they're more passionate and like, impulse driven, they might be better at that like fast, sketchy, like really cool work that like I'm not really that good at. So it's like it's kind of like I really like the gestural, really fast, really kind of stuff because it's like I don't feel like that's like my biggest strength at this moment. So
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
find that in people, but also myself when I reflect
Mhm.
on it. You know.
That resounds with me a lot. You know, it's something I'm trying to break out of the habit of, is just overthinking the pre-production side of things. You know, like
Mm.
I've found that when I'm inking a project, I can actually move pretty quickly. But it's the layout, it's the design, it's the over planning in the beginning that I just, you know, illustration work takes me so long to do. You know, if I bet if you talk to like a dozen different illustrators that work in pen and ink and ask them, you know, how many hours did this take you? I'm going to be in the far end of like, oh, this took me a fucking so
I mean,
long
it
to do,
takes a lot
man.
of time. There's no
Yeah.
avoiding it. But yeah, you do get faster.
Um, are you familiar with a an older illustrator from Cleveland named Derek Hess?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, he did a lot of. I mean, he did work with Converge. He did a lot of work with like Nora and like all
He
these
did
like
like
old Equal
In
Vision bands.
Flames, Come Clarity, didn't he?
I I
I
think
think he
so.
did. I'll
Okay,
look it up after.
I'm not the biggest In Flames fan.
Well, it's high school for me, so it's like I just remember. And
Yeah,
I think I was looking at his Instagram, like, oh yeah, that's how I know you.
right, right.
Yeah.
So Derek Hess was actually a really, really early influence on me, you know, when I was a kid, um, because of how strong his work is gesturally. You know, each one of his marks is so much strength behind it. You know, there's so much confidence behind what he does, and he really captures these emotions in this really, really phenomenal way that, um, you know, where I think I have strength as like a really technical illustrator, I don't know how to convey that. You know, like I don't know how to get those like raw emotional sort of things to kind of come across. And Clive Barker was also someone who
Yeah.
was, you know, when I was a kid, I saw like Clive Barker's illustration work. He actually, some of his work was used by this old Boston band called Reveille in like the 90s, like old band. Um, and I remember I bought their CD in high school and just saw this like really, really crazy, like, you know, sketchy, hasty image of like a demon gouging its own eyes out, and was just like, this is the sickest thing ever.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I think the thing that and I think why I'm kind of like really thinking about this stuff a lot more often right now is lately I'm really kind of focused on confidence as an artist. And I think that you know, it goes into my tattoo work, it goes into my illustration work, and in my painting work, where you know, as someone who overplans things, overthinks things, um, I think it's out of caution, where I'm like, I'm so, you know, worried about fucking something up, or, you know, making a mistake or making a wrong line. And I think that is super healthy when you're a tattoo artist.
Right.
You know, like there's no room for error in tattooing. You have to, you know, you don't have to. I mean, everyone does it differently, but it's you know, what works for me is that I have to overplan everything. You know, even if I'm freehanding a drawing onto someone's body, I have to draw it up ahead of time. I have to have something ready to go. I have to have a plan to know that something's going to work. And I think I'm really trying to get more into this notion of like, well, no, you know how to draw this. You've drawn this 100 times. Like, just go for it. You know, just make it stronger. You know, like have more confidence in the marks that you're making, and you know, your work is going to look stronger, and you're going to get it done faster. Um,
I agree with your point. The interesting thing though,
mhm.
and it's like you only know for yourself what you really need, but you could almost say in some cases the opposite is true. And it's like there are times when exactly what you're saying is what I need to tell myself. Absolutely. But it's interesting right now. I'm doing 5 studies before I even pick up the painting
Ooh,
because I
yeah.
have time to do so. But it's like, am I over planning, over preparing, or am I taking my time, learning my mistakes out in a safe place and being confident there to play around? And I'm also just practicing painting, like I said, like what I really need to do to feel confident on the final. So it's almost like knowing when you're over preparing or you're actually preparing just the right amount. It just is painful because it is. It's like you only know for yourself. So it's like I'm not discounting what you're saying because I've been there, absolutely. But right now, I spent a whole weekend just doing these tiny little paintings. I have them all right over here.
Can you show them?
Yeah.
Can
And
I
I'm
see
like
them?
learning with each one. I'm taking notes. But it's like somebody from the outside, if they didn't realize that I felt like I was learning something from it, would be like, that seems like a waste of time. Yeah. Here, let me grab them.
Yeah, please.
All right. With the headphones and stuff, this might be a little painful. Let's see.
I get the feeling you and I have very, very similar
I think so.
work ethics.
It's like work ethics, but we're also planners. You know.
Well, I'm really interested to talk to you about going from working in pen and ink to watercolor because I'm doing the same thing. And pen and ink is something where you have such fine control over what you're doing. And then watercolor is just like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, they're opposites. Watercolor to me is like the best teacher though. Because you learn things faster because you make mistakes faster. And there's so many different ways to approach watercolor.
Yeah.
And I personally have leaned a little more towards the traditional wet on wet kind of style instead of like a bunch of like small layers. I do like these big bold washes. All right, so here's study number 1. Just 2 layers of watercolor here. Wet on wet.
So you just have a ton of confidence. This is why you're not worried about this.
Well, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
so
that
cool.
confident. Here, let me show. There's another one there.
Wow.
And then this is the most complete one. This one. Jesus,
Wow.
these things are huge.
Yeah, I love how dark you're willing to go with watercolor too. So, I mean, that's something that I've just had an issue with, in my entire art career across every medium is like just really being willing to commit to going dark.
Well, that's why these studies are helpful. Is because I can push all the way, and then when I actually have the final, I don't fuss around. And then here's the last 2. So this was my whole weekend.
Wow.
So this one I did like more light. And then I'm just kind of taking notes. I'm like, what worked well, what didn't. This one just blue, right? Yeah.
These are so cool.
These are just personal pieces, but the final will be a lot larger. And what I've realized is different things. Because like I'm doing watercolor, but then I'm going to do, it's like, oh, do I do color pencil then gouache? Or do I do a gouache minor color pencil? Do I lay down matte medium so I have a fresh surface? It's like each one of these I'm doing different experiments because I don't want to learn oil painting right now. And I'm too stubborn to do acrylic at the moment. So I'm like, all right, I have watercolor, color pencil, and gouache. How do I make these look the best for what I want to do? So that's what I'm kind of doing at the moment. And it's like,
so cool.
Is it lack of confidence or is it learning? I feel like it's learning.
No, this is definitely not lack of confidence at that point. I think what you have right there is a very disciplined plan of how to execute a project. And I think that comes from confidence. And I think it's less of at that point of being like, oh, am I over planning? Am I like doing this because I'm not sure what I'm doing? Of just like, no, I know exactly what steps I need to take to get the result that I want. And I think that's a especially with watercolor. It's such a fantastic way to work. Um, and most of the pieces that I've done in watercolor that I'm really proud of, same thing is I'll do a study ahead of time.
Nice.
A lot of there was one watercolor painting of mine that you and I had sort of talked about a little bit, which was this sheet ghost painting, and I
That's
should have sent it
amazing
to you.
piece.
Thank you. I should have sent it to you ahead of time, but I did a study for that one that was the same painting, just a little bit smaller. And same thing, just kind of work out. That guy, sort of working out what that would look like, just at like a slightly smaller scale. So I knew I wasn't going to, just be dumping like 80 hours into it, and then, realize something I wish I had done differently, and then been like, well, I'm not going to do another 80 hours on this. So, something that I can start smaller and kind of get some ideas as to what does and doesn't work. And yeah, especially with watercolor, if you're not doing like a plein air study or something where you're just out in nature, doing the study ahead of time is huge.
Totally. With this, how big is this final?
This is 14 by 20. 14 by 20. Yeah, this is on a big pad of Arches watercolor paper. It's a cold press paper.
It's still kind of on the smaller side, though. I could imagine this thing being massive.
Oh yeah, no, I don't work very large. I think like 16 by 20 is typically around as large as I kind of take on projects, because I've always been just such a detail oriented person that like, really kind of getting in there and like, hyper focusing on that stuff has been much easier for me than like, doing like big washes, like big gradients, big fields of tone, which, honestly, this was sort of an exercise of working on getting these gradients to look natural, like getting these washes to look, realistic and whatnot. And it's, this was based off of a photo I took. So this is just a bed sheet that I had my wife model. I just kind of had her like stand on a crate and put the sheet on her, and actually just kind of clothes pinned it in different places. Cool. But it was just it was a white sheet. And the pattern on top of that is a illustration that I overlaid on top of that drawing, or on top of that photo, basically. And then, to do this painting, it was, doing the sheet as a painting first, and then going back and drawing that pattern on top of it, and then painting that second.
It's amazing, dude. Like, I don't even know where to start with it. I love it. I'm like,
thank you.
Like because I see this and I'm just like, wow, it's amazing how expressive it is, and that like all that work with like getting the photo ready, overlaying the design on top of it, like all of that prep work, like we were talking about, actually really pays off to make it look complete, cohesive. And from the watercolor standpoint, were you doing like a lot of layers? Like, it's just really tight as well, in like a good way.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate that. I don't know if you've ever felt this about any of your work before, but when I finally finished this project, I kind of looked at it and was just like, oh, this is like the first real painting I've ever done.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
Where I was like, oh, like I love all the work that I've been, it's been my career forever. So obviously I'm, somewhat proud of it. But this was the first one that I kind of sat back and was like, okay, all right. Yeah, this is different.
It's one of those pieces that ups the level. It's a next level piece.
Yeah. So there's a technique in this one that's like really, really present in the entire thing, that I really, really do a lot of in my work, where, I only use a handful of different brushes, but one of the things I use consistently through the whole thing is paper towels. So much of this is like picking an area, laying down laying down a really, really, really light wash, and then lifting out the highlights with a paper towel.
Yeah.
And, kind of filling back in some of the shadows, lifting and filling and lifting and filling over and over and over. So the whole thing is just like layer, 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 layer. Just, so it's a very, very meticulous process.
And that's like the opposite school of watercolor that I do, which is interesting, because it's like this led to such a cool result.
Thank you. And, I've known some really, really, really phenomenal watercolor painters that did not teach me to work this way. I do watercolor wrong. It works, but it's not how you're taught to do it. But there's a really, really phenomenal watercolor painter who's also a tattoo artist named Dan Marshall. I'm blanking on the name of where Dan Marshall works, but I know he's in Colorado. But he was formerly in New York. He used to work at a shop called Tribulation Tattoo, with another phenomenal tattooer named Tim Kern, who's up in Portland now. But Dan Marshall used to come and do guest spots with us at Eastside Ink when I worked there. And, he was very down to do like a watercolor seminar with all of us one day. And, I learned so much from watching him paint. And I also learned a lot of really cool tattoo technique from watching Dan Marshall. So, I think there is a lot of watercolor technique that I do think transfers to how I tattoo.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's, I'm going to categorize it, and it's not really like its own genre, but like tattoo paintings, like tattooers who paint. Those are some of my favorite paintings. I have like books of them because because I like how graphic it is in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. It's a little Japanese inspired in a lot of cases. Everyone has their own take on it, but what I mean with like, there's whole book series about it. Like Black Dagger books, right? Like they have the monthly thing and it's all paintings done by tattooers, and there's magazines that are dedicated just to that. I collect a lot of those, but then at the same time, it's like, cause I used to do a little more of that school, and that was more of my inspiration. But then I like fell in love with seeing like, more traditional watercolors, landscape watercolor, stuff like that. And I've incorporated more of those techniques. And it's interesting how you can use that medium in so many different ways.
Yeah. It's watercolor has such an interesting reputation as well, where I feel like it's really sneaky. It's sort of a lot of people that are a lot more novice, and beginner in the world of art, that want to get into art, kind of get this sense that watercolor is like a really good place to start. And I know so many people that, are not professionals, they're not commercial illustrators or not, professional painters. They don't have backgrounds, that are just like, yeah, I really got into watercolor. And I'm just like, the thing that stresses me out the most.
Yeah.
Good for you.
You have to write paper. You have to, constantly think about water to paint ratio, drying times.
Yeah. It is a beast, but it has so many incredible applications where, I love it. I have so much respect for it. I don't consider myself like really good at it, but I think why I'm so drawn to it is because there's so much room to learn. There's so much room to improve, and it's just a good teacher, like
exactly.
It's, and again, why we do studies, because you're gonna fuck up.
The biggest thing I've learned that I can apply to like my pen and ink work from watercolor and like watercolor tutorials. There's so many good educators in watercolor on the internet, and all this shit's for free. Is with traditional watercoloring, you got the scene, and I'm thinking landscape, and it's all about trying to get all of the shapes to connect in some way for that first layer, and then leaving some of the paper to be white. And I was thinking, oh, that's so interesting, because the way I approach pen and ink is like, I like to think like I'm painting in gray through lines. So I'm like, how can I connect
Mm-hmm.
all of these shapes, and then I add the values in, and it's like I have a maybe not a full scale of 10 in terms of value variation. I at
Mm-hmm.
least have 5.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But then I see artists who it's just black and white, like
Yeah.
Frazetta and like even Frank Miller, like in Sin City, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, man, that's so badass. But it's not really my voice a lot of the time. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've definitely kind of fallen in love with like the painting with a pen type of style. You know, Virgil Finlay,
Mm-hmm.
fucking Franklin Booth a little bit. You know, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with an artist named Andrew Loomis.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah. So I have a couple of Andrew Loomis books that are like over 80 years old at this point, you know. And so
Figure
much.
for all it's worth. I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, figure drawing for all it's worth. Oh my God, what a way to school yourself. If you're like me and you don't have a really, really robust illustration, like academic background in illustration and in artwork, Andrew Loomis is such a godsend. Creative illustration, I think is just the other book. And, there's a lot of lessons in that I've really tried to take to heart. And, when you talk about values on a scale of 1 to 10, something that his writing has really instilled in me is, break it down into 4 major tones, break your composition into 4 major tones. Your white, light gray, dark gray, black, and, base your foreground, your subject, your background, something complementary, have each of those be their own tone, and you're going to come up with a composition that's going to read much more clearly. And I, especially as a tattooer who is like needlessly complicated, as a designer, you know, really, really having that in the back of my mind is like, no, simplify this. Like this needs to be dark. This needs to be light. Don't have them all be the same tone. And there are a lot of, how do I word this? I think especially with pen and ink, this is a trap that like all of us who do it can fall into, where you have this like gloriously detailed piece, like really, really meticulously rendered figures, very, very, very cool subject, like sick mood, like everything works really well. And then when you get far away from it, it's just field of gray, because everything has this level of detail in equal measure that it's just suddenly all gray. And knowing where to have like enough black, knowing where to have enough negative space. I mean, and I say this as someone who needs to go back through a piece I'm working on right now and deal with this.
No, you're totally right though. Contrast, strong silhouettes. I think a lot of illustrators in death metal can always remind themselves of those things, because everyone loves, Lovecraftian googly monster kind of stuff, but it's like it's a lot cooler when it's got an interesting shape design and it's dissectable from a distance. That silhouette is so important on that t-shirt, So I'm right there with you.
There's a fun lesson that I learned from another tattooer who I absolutely love and have looked up to forever. A guy named Henry Lewis, works at Skull and Sword. Most style of any tattooer I know. I love his work so much. But he worked at Memoir Tattoo, and he's come back and done guest spots with us. And he's fantastic to work in a shop with, because he'll walk in, take one look at what I'm working on, and just immediately rip it apart. He's not afraid to be like, no, it sucks, fix it. Not quite in those words, but one of the big things that he really gave me, he's dropped so many different chestnuts that are magical. But one thing he really gave me was to get a little moleskin, that's like the size of a phone, like one of those tiny little notebooks. I have one in my bag, like right over there somewhere. And work your compositions out small to start.
Yeah, thumbnails.
Um, and that's not how I've typically worked. Especially as a tattooer, where I'm doing someone's whole arm, doing their ribs, doing a leg, doing whatever. Is I want to start my composition at scale. And I think this applies to tattooing as well as painting, where if you start small, no matter where it's going, what size it's going to be, that's what you're going to see from a distance. So, getting that silhouette right, like you're talking about, is so important. And that has been a really handy way for me to do that, is to just try to work small, where there's no room for details. There's just room for silhouettes.
That's a good point. Excellent point. As I just bought the largest sketchbook that they purchase, I think, for Moleskine, but it's because, fuck, man, I like it because the organized part of me, when I bought this, I like how it is clean, but these rings are the death to me, dude, because they just they mess with my flow. I can't go across the page, and it's funny. I think I draw a lot bigger than a lot of people. And then what I do is just like how a lot of tattooers who use tracing paper to tighten up their pieces, I do a very similar thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty large, and then smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of those details and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
I'm ranting though.
No, go ahead. Not at all. No, I think we're getting somewhere here. I love this.
Okay. Cool.
No, I mean, the tracing paper I love. And, I think there's two really, really amazing benefits of tracing paper. The first is fucking cheap. It's, and because it's so cheap, it's really easy to just jump into and work quick and work messy and not feel too precious. Especially, starting working in oil, working as a watercolor painter, that shit is expensive. Yeah. And, I think there's something about having a really, really nice piece of paper or really nice board, really nice linen that you're just I really got to be zeroed in to work on this. I really got to be fully prepared to work on this. And that never happens. I'm never in the perfect headspace for that. Yeah. So tracing paper, it's it's shitty. Who cares? I can be in the middle of doing something else and be all right, let me just rip this out real quick. If it sucks, it sucks. I toss it. And it gets me working. It gets me working so much more. And, I can be less precious with it and just actually get into it more. I still start all of my tattoos on tracing paper. Even though I mostly finish sketches, digitally. I'll go into Procreate, where I can really kind of overlay a design onto a photo of a body. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's still so easy for me to just just take Copic markers and just kind of blast things out at scale. Just kind of work super quick. I mean, I have a whole everything I do. This is just chock full of this. I have I've got over 20 of these in a box.
That is such a good point, though, of it's I feel the exact same way of getting psyched out by expensive supplies. It's that's the opposite of how you want to feel as an artist, in a lot of the cases. Yeah. But when you do work on that final and that arches can take a beating, you're pretty thankful you spent the money on it.
Oh, I know. Well, that's the thing, is when you're working on a final, I've got projects that I've done on cheaper watercolor paper, and I always regret it. Always. It just, your pigment is not going to disperse in the same way that it's going to when you're working on a really nice piece of paper. Your brushes are not going to do what you're used to them doing. The water, it's not going to absorb water at the same rate in the same way. And, that's one of the things that I will not fuck around with. but it's funny because even like pen and ink stuff, I've done finished pieces on tracing paper before, because it's like, oh, if this is just going to get scanned, it's fine. I really like like vellum to work on as well, where it's like a little sturdier. But what do you normally work on when you're doing pen and ink work, or does it vary? What do you like to work on?
Vellum or smooth Bristol board is my favorite. I know some people work on illustration board. The only reason I would love to, because I like the thickness of it. It just feels good. But I use a light board for my transfer of my sketch drawing. So if the board's too thick, I can't see the light. And I don't like the whole graphite rub transfer method. So I actually do the same thing. I do light board for watercolor paper too. The only thing is you got to really draw dark, because I love the 300-pound Arches hot press for watercolor.
Oh yeah.
Because when I'm saying watercolor, it's mixed media. It's just watercolor is my foundation.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned gouache and colored pencil as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a colored pencil defender, man. A lot of people.
They're cool.
Yeah, it's especially like the higher grade pencils, man. You can make some really cool shit. That's another medium that I feel like doesn't get enough love, but I'll put that aside. But yeah, pen and ink. I love the feeling of smooth Bristol board. Just it's not that expensive, the Canson middle grade or the high grade. I honestly can't tell the difference between the two that much.
What do I have in front of me here? I've got the Strathmore Bristol, and then I've got the
Strathmore. That's what I use. Yeah, they have the better and the best, and I just go between either of those two.
I've been doing a lot of stuff on this lately. It's called Paris paper. It's flimsy. It's cheap. It's basically just Bristol vellum. But it's the thing that I really, really like using it for is, again, Copic markers. I really like Copic markers.
Same.
I don't necessarily love them for like a final piece, but they layer
Studies.
really well on this sort of stuff. Look at you and your studies. That's so sick.
Now I've done too many. I got even more.
You're thorough. You are fucking thorough.
I know this is uncommon to do this many. So then I did sloppy colored pencil one, and then here you want is me being humbled, and I was talking to my friend Joe about it. I was like, I had a moment this past week when I realized I really love this certain type of art style, but why do I need to be the one who does it? Why don't I just let other people do it and I just do me, Because I was like, man, it'd be really cool if it was like made out of chrome. And I was like, fuck, making chrome is so fucking hard. And it's like, it doesn't fit. It's like, why do I need the client didn't ask for chrome. I was just like, oh, that'd be cool. And then I'm like, because I don't like to, I don't like to surrender, you know what I mean? But I was like, you know what? I'm going to let other people do chrome that like are really good at it. And I'm just going to do my own thing. I'll do my own Roger Dean, heavy metal Mobius kind of shit,
Listen, none of us are impervious to the siren's call of chrome.
Chrome sucks though, dude.
It's so cool, but oh my God. Yeah. It's like,
traditionally, God damn.
How am I blanking on his name? Suriyama? Is that who I'm thinking of? Yeah. The master chrome painter. I mean, the secret to doing really good chrome is just airbrush.
Yeah. And I kind of hate using my airbrush. I don't like it. Yeah, I like brush and watercolor. So I was talking to him. I'm like, that's another kind of lesson too, is like, you can be big fans of other people's work, but you don't, it doesn't, at a certain point, it's kind of like, know what you want to do and what you like to do, and you don't have to do that. Like, you don't. And it's, I kind of went through a whole weekend of just kind of like being in my head about it, because I was like, am I giving up because it's too hard? But then I just realized that it's like the mediums that I'm strong in, aren't going to execute it the way that it looks. I even did like see, I'm talking too much, but I did like a chrome like Draki from Drag Quest, and I was like, it looks pretty cool, but it's like fuck, to actually make it look to the level that I want. It's not for me right now. So I just kind of like gave up, or I let go of that.
I think
and I'm kind of glad I did.
You know what? I really appreciate that. And I think something that helps each and every one of us become stronger as artists. Maybe that's not the word I'm looking for, but I think giving yourself parameters versus, you know, I'm someone who like, I want to do everything. I want to work in every medium. I want to do everything. And I will get option paralysis, and I won't be able to get anything done because I'll just have too many competing ideas and I won't know where to start. So even the parameter of I'm not allowed to do Chrome. Not right now, not for this, you know, like I think that's great, you know. And think of how many, you know, phenomenal artists out there that we all love and look up to that like don't do Chrome.
Exactly. You don't expect them to do Chrome.
No,
like, you don't need to. You're good at what you do.
No one's hiring Dan Seagrave and being like, "Give me Chrome." Although I feel like maybe he did. I feel like he did Chrome on something.
I don't think he had. I can't think of. I know a lot of his covers. I can't think of any. He does. He does like it's. You know, he had a phase where he's doing more mechanical, architectural stuff. Yeah, I could go on a whole tangent about that.
What a legend!
Absolutely, and like he has a distinctive style, but he has had phases, and it's kind of cool to like see him through those times.
Call back to my friends in Glorious Depravity. He just did their album cover. The record they put out last month, maybe longer now. I don't know how time works anymore. Recent album they put out. Have you done an episode with Dan Seagrave?
Nope.
Have you reached out to him? You should. You should. He's so cool.
Most of the big art names in heavy metal I have reached out to. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
And I will say that everyone I have ever reached out to, which is, you know, I do get rejected, just so you guys are aware, when I do my cold emails. Everyone has been very polite and friendly and kind. I will say that. I've actually had no bad experiences with really anybody. Guests or even just people I've interacted with, just for the record.
I love that. There is something about the illustration community where it's like, you really never hear grumblings of people being like, "Oh yeah, so and so's an asshole." Like it's
not that common.
It's not common in the illustration world. You know, tattooing, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about the illustration world where it just doesn't really. I haven't run into it that often.
I think the lifestyle of a illustrator is maybe it is romanticized. I don't know, but in case anyone's curious, it's just being alone, working, and then being humbled day in and day out. So that's what it feels like. At least with tattooing, a lot of times there's camaraderie, hopefully, but there's also, you know, shop culture, shop drama, all that kind of stuff. It's a different occupation for sure.
I think there is, you know, there's definitely a lot more of a social spotlight, you know, in the world of tattooing. You know, it is such a client-facing sort of thing. You know, we are, you know, you are present the entire time you are with a client, whereas an illustrator, like, you're very, I mean, you're very much alone. You know, you're really in your own headspace, in your own world. Like, even if you're working at a coffee shop or working out in public, you know, you are like not necessarily doing your illustration work in real time with the client.
Hopefully not. They'll judge you with each line. Then you'll definitely not be confident.
It is. It is pretty funny. So, as far as coming up with compositions and coming up with drawings, before the episode started, I sort of briefly started talking about my consultation process, where I do a lot of the tattoo directly in front of someone. Like, I draw up a lot of the design directly in front of someone. And again, I think a lot of this plays into the confidence thing, where I work so well with feedback that I feel better if I can show my client, like, this is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to fit. All that's really left for me to do is refine this into exactly what we talked about, versus being like, hey, what do you want to do? Okay, let me take a picture of your body, come back in 2 weeks, and I'll just have it. And I'm just going to take the reins on every decision. I really like a lot more collaborative process, where I'll get to, in my head, if I'm left to make a lot of the decisions on my own, where I'll overthink things, or I'll come up with like too many different versions of how to do it, and just really get in my head about, well, the client's not going to like this, or I don't know if they're going to want this, or what if they hate this. So, and honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's the projects where I do get really cavalier and just take on all the decisions on my own, and then show someone a drawing that they're like, oh, that's so cool, but no.
Yeah. That's a great point. I like collaborative process too. It's like the combination of good faith collaboration and trust. Because it's like they have to trust you at the same time, but it's like, when I'm like coming up with an illustration, it's like, oh, there's like 10 different ways this could be cool. So it's like, what are like the 2 ways that you particularly want me to venture further with? And then I like that, but it has to be with somebody who trusts you and is like really cool and like excited. I imagine, like, for you, especially when it's like somebody who wants something that's a little more of your vein, or you think that initially, illustration or tattooing, that always feels good. But I never like the feeling of like somebody coming to me randomly because like, oh, you do art, create this. It's like, have you really looked at what I do? Because it's like, I don't do Chrome, it's like that kind of thing, right? It's right back to that.
Oh, and it's definitely happened to me before, where I've had people message me or reach out and just be like, I love your work, it's so cool, I really want you to do this tattoo. It's a tribal gecko, and you're just like, yes, but like I'll do it, and it's gonna be the sickest tribal gecko you've ever seen. But how did you get to me?
It is, and I would genuinely be curious to know why, and how.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, what it is that we tend to take it for granted how big of a visual vocabulary we have, and how wildly refined what it is that we know and what we do is. And you just cannot take it for granted that your clients have that same visual vocabulary, or that they are well versed in the same references that you're going to pull and whatnot. And that's not their job. Like, you can't ever fault someone for not knowing the things, or being like, oh my God, why would you come to me for that? That's not what I do. It's like, no, there's clearly something that you saw in my work that gave you that same amount of excitement for whatever the thing is that you want, even if you and I know that they're like completely disparate things. There's something there that your client is really stoked on. And I think rather than lean into the bewilderment, it's just to really, really have that gratitude that someone was thinking of you in the first place.
It's a great point. I love how, and I mean this as a compliment, genuinely, but you're like an anti-snob. You're like the opposite of what a snob would be. Or maybe it's something you've become, but I get that sense, and I really like that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I this applies to tattooing. This applies to illustration, and it's everything. Where I think there's room for everybody. Like and it's not. It's everyone has to start somewhere. So I can't get mad at like people that are trying to get into tattooing right now that are just like, you know what, if you want to get into an industry that is currently going through like a real hard time and a recession and you're still like, no, I want this to be my career, like there's something to be said for that. I don't know. But no, I mean, I think I just think I've just maybe just kind of aged out of being a snob. Like it's just not energy that I have anymore. Like it doesn't accomplish anything. And what little energy I do have, I just want to try to put it into like being better at what I do.
Absolutely, man.
I
feel the exact same way. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I wanted to show some art in a minute,
Sure.
but I was kind of curious, like from an illustration point of view, so like outside of tattooing, like what would be like some of your inspirations or just the things that really excite you, like artists that you've kind of always looked up to and stuff?
Oh,
it's kind of hard to pin down.
It's a little all over the place and it kind of changes, but I would say, like really, really, really big ones that have just kind of been there forever. Gustave Doré, absolutely love his work. As a steel plate engraver, just working, with hand gravers, to be able to like capture light in the way that he does and still have like such like lush details and like, and Gustave Doré is a factory. He's not one person. If you look at any one of those plates, there's someone else's name at the bottom of them because, he's like the Jeff Koons of his time. There's a whole army of people working under him to, really, really bring those plates to life, bring those prints to life. That was the era where, you had one person that just did leaves on trees. You had one person that just did faces, one person that just
I didn't
did
know
clouds.
that. That's so interesting.
That's some shit that I found out. Can I back this up? No, but this is what I've been told.
I mean, a lot of the big artists were like that. I mean, Dali was like that.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even realize that about Dali. Okay.
I'll do a little fact checking, but I'm pretty damn positive, especially at the end with those giant religious paintings. I'm pretty sure he had some understudies and people helping make that happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. We tend to look at artists as like individuals more than we look at them as institutions where, I knew people that worked for Jeff Koons in New York, which is how I knew he had 150 employees,
That's crazy.
Like, I know, to make a fucking balloon, whatever. You're like, oh, you don't talk shit. And I'm like, well.
Yeah, actually the anti-snob, I don't know. No, that's interesting though. Okay.
No, to get back on track.
So yeah, Doré
for sure. Bernini, the Italian sculptor Bernini. Tons of pieces all over the Vatican, all over Rome. His sculptural work has really, really, really been massive to me, especially as someone who spent years of my career just working in black and white. Those sculptures have been so monumental as far as like, how do you work out form? How do you work out light? How do you get these like lush details? And to see that he was carving this stuff in marble is just insane. I am a huge fan of his work. If I ever get a chance to like get over to Italy, it's one of the number one things I want to do is, see a lot of his work in person. And then, are you familiar with Jeff Darrow, the illustrator? Huge Jeff Darrow fan.
Collaborated with Mobius.
Yeah, that's right. He's got a project that's ongoing that's like current right now, called Shaolin Cowboy.
Hmm.
That's really fun. If you haven't seen it, I love Shaolin Cowboy. The work he did for Hard Boiled, which I think was Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Incredible. I mean, he's just like, to me, he's just the king of like oversaturating with details. And I love it. It's like every piece of his is just this like unbelievably like chaotic, just like Where's Waldo kind of
Yeah.
thing, but just like so cool. And, just he's just, so much style, so accurate. There's a French illustrator who's pretty current, named Deathburger, or he goes by
Hmm.
Deathburger. Couldn't tell you what his real name is. Um, Also, really, really huge fan of their work. Again, just like really celebrates details, and that's the type of shit I really love. Huge H.R. Giger fan. Um, God, actually, this is kind of a fun one. This is someone that I found a little more recently. I just happened to have this book right in front of me. But this artist, Chris Cooksey,
Oh wow,
and
that's cool. I think I've seen their work in High Fructose at one point.
yeah, so it's like
They're contemporary,
sculpture.
right?
Yes, it's all like sculpture with like found objects and just like
Wow.
so cool. So I've been really, really, into this artist a little more recently, but then getting back to like kind of like long term, like people that have really inspired me for a long time. It's Timothy Hoyer, it's Thomas Hooper. It's that whole crew from New York Adorned, back in Brooklyn almost 20 years ago. Um, as far as like, tattoo world kind of influences go and whatnot.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, that's all over the map. Very neat.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, more painters. This is one of those questions that like, I'm going to bolt awake at like 5 o'clock in the morning and be like, why didn't I mention this person? There's like,
Oh yeah.
there's so
Well,
many.
well, I like how varied it is. Like it's a good thing, how you're pulling from all these different things, finding the things that you like in all these different types of artists. I mean, that's something I'm always like trying to pay attention to is like I could have like my 10 people that I really, really like get inspired by, but
Mm-hmm.
widening that scope helps make sure that my own voice comes out, in terms of the influence. Because
Yeah.
like the more inspiration you find from different types of art, the more you'll see something that's unique and bring something new into that
Mm-hmm.
genre you're kind of classified in, with your peers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's seeing something that's, outside of what you do and, finding something in it that really resounds within you. And, just kind of being like, well, how do I express that with how I work? So I think being able to like get outside of like, just looking at other pen and ink illustrators, which I take so much inspiration from as well. Uh, you know, every time I go down the list of like, people that you've already interviewed, I'm just like, I love all of these people, or like, I've had conversations with a lot of these people, and which is so sick that like, we talk about like illustrators being like genuinely like not known for being shitty people, but honestly, like being known for being pretty approachable. Um,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of people that have done album covers that I really love, or paintings I've really loved and whatnot. That like you can just fucking reach out to them on the internet and say hi, and they'll say hi back. Like they're real people, and I think it's very cool that there is such a community around this that is open and willing to have these kind of conversations. And I really applaud you, and I really appreciate you for driving so many of these conversations. I think it's super cool.
Thank you. Make me feel special. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of good work over here. It's very selfless of you, when we could be doing anything other than like art for a minute.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Let's highlight some of your work.
Sure.
All right. So the first one I had here, and if it's helpful for you and then also the audience, go full screen. You can see the details a little bit better. So I just made it a little larger. I know the StreamYard window is kind of tiny. So tell me a little bit about this piece.
Yes. So this is a record cover for this band from Denver called Victim of Fire. Their guitarist Austin Minnie, very very cool dude. Also recording engineer out in Denver. Just sick, kind of D-beat, crusty band. They're a very hardworking band. They hit the road pretty regularly. As like a just group of pals that are just like really, really down to do the thing. And I was really stoked that they hit me up to do this record cover. This is an album that came out last year. And we really went back and forth over what this was going to be for a long time. I know there were, I don't know if conflicting ideas was necessarily the right way to put it, but there was different input from multiple band members. So it was sort of like, okay, let's kind of parse out, like, what do you all actually want as a whole? Mm-hmm. I had done a couple of sketches, the first way that they had asked for. And again, just like Copic marker on tracing paper. And I think I actually did send them some little Moleskine sketches as well. And then they kind of just like really shifted direction. And what they had ultimately wound up asking for was, they wanted this bird. They weren't too, particular about what kind of bird, but they wanted it on like a World War I battlefield. But like after the battle, like they didn't want it to be like, active battle scene. And, they didn't want it like, like littered with bones and skulls and stuff like that. They just were like, kind of like eerie, spooky battlefield. And
they didn't want a Sabaton album cover with like the...
We can't all have Sabaton album covers.
Sorry.
I know we all want to go there, but that was sort of the challenging thing, is because the first thing that comes to mind for me of empty battlefield is like, so you want just like a plain field? You want like a bird and a horizon line? Like, what does this look like? So this was sort of my way of, kind of keeping something that has all these like really, really fun details that you can kind of go through and pick out. And you can really like spend a lot of time with this image and still get this like, really, really like bleak sort of feel out of it, was to, just make a whole scene out of it and really focus on, the World War I era bunkers, like the trench warfare kind of trenches going in through there, the bombed out city in the background. It's kind of hard to read, but that center of the image, there's that, like field of poppy flowers. It's going to kill me. I'm never going to remember the name of the poet, but there's a poem about the flowers in the field post World War I. And I know this because there's a Peanuts movie that features it, like Charlie Brown's Peanuts. I saw it when I was a kid and it just really stuck with me. I don't know, but apparently not that well that I could tell you what it is. But I was like, oh, I should put those flowers in there. That'd be cool. And then, what they had done in World War I was, that for grave markers, you didn't have time to, dig the fields, or, it was winter time.
John McCrae, the Flanders fields.
Thank you. Flanders fields. My God. Thank you. Yes.
I just looked it up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was like, I knew it was going to bug you. I had to do it.
Thank you. Yeah. So that was, that was my homage to butchering Flanders. But yeah, having those sort of like grave markers of, the soldiers' helmets over their rifles, stuck in the ground with the bayonets. I almost feel like this was me sort of pushing against their direction of empty battlefield. Was just like, now I'm gonna overload this as much as possible. I want everything in this. But yeah, they were stoked on it. I sent them multiple kind of drafts of this and whatnot, and I'm really happy with it. They're really happy with it. They were very particular about the color scheme to this. Um, my natural inclination was not to go blue green with it, but I'm ultimately really happy with how it looks. I think it kind of gives that sort of like mustard gassy kind of vibe.
Well, and what medium is this?
So this is an interesting one for me. This is actually 100% digital,
Okay.
which I don't typically do. And we had kind of talked about how we were going to do it, and it was pretty open ended as to like what medium it was ultimately going to be. And I wound up, what I always do, whether it's going to be a pen and ink drawing, whether it's going to be a painting, is I'll do like a really really well rendered pencil drawing. And lately, what's been the most efficient way to do that is to do the pencil drawing on my iPad in Procreate. And this was ultimately that pencil drawing. But I think I have it in front of me. I can show you one of the early marker sketches for it. It's over here somewhere. I just grabbed a ton. Yeah, here we go. I grabbed a ton of stuff to kind of show you. And I don't know how well this is gonna read from here because it's pretty light.
1 second, and I can get you a little bit bigger here. There you go.
Yeah, so
Oh
you
wow,
can
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so pretty much just starting on just shitty tracing paper, Copic markers, and then I just take a photo of that, I throw it in Procreate, and just start kind of building from there. So what I wound up with was this like really, really, really detailed pencil drawing. And, as always happens, I started, kind of coming up on some time constraints where the deadline was, kind of looming for this. And I was like, all right, what I want to do is I want to do this as a painting. I want to do this as a watercolor painting. And I know that that's going to be a really time consuming process. What's going to make it quicker is if I just start doing a shading study and do that digitally, so I can just like kind of go in quicker with the thing, doing that study ahead of time. And I just kept rendering it and rendering it and then rendering it more and rendering it more. And the next thing I know, I was just I'd kind of like sit back and look at it and be like, this is like, it's kind of doing it. So, I was just like, let's just really keep following this. And, I've really started to lean into coloring things digitally a little more because you do get a lot of flexibility with it. And this was one of those things where, it was really really helpful to be able to color this digitally and show them a bunch of different variations, to kind of like really get the color scheme that they wanted because they were pretty particular about it. Because they did turn down a couple different versions I sent them. But it just sort of worked out where, I would just send them updates and, progress shots along the way, and they were like really stoked on it. And, ultimately I was like, I think we're just gonna leave it as is. And I think the digital rendering is at the level that I'm really happy with, and I think is really consistent with a lot of other artwork that I would have done on paper.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, I think this piece is amazing.
Thank you.
Like, so many good decisions compositionally. Like, I love how the sky is it's blank, and it really allows your eyes to go downward, and there's the dark to kind of light. You have great atmospheric perspective both in like the line weight, but then the color with it being more blue up there. You took the challenge of like an empty battlefield, but there's so much points of visual interest, yet it doesn't compete. And digitally, like, the thing is, it's digital, but like it's really, it feels very tangible. It feels solid. Like I could also see as being a physical painting, and like that's to me like the best is like it doesn't have that weakness of digital that sometimes you see. So, dude,
Thank you.
I think this type of work, I think you're good at digital because you come from traditional media.
Mm.
Like I'm very, very impressed with this. And my digital skills are so weak. So you did this all in Procreate.
This is all in Procreate, yeah.
Man, that's amazing. Because I love how simple that platform is compared to Photoshop.
I started using it because of tattooing, and
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of conversations with other tattooers and other artists where I ultimately want to start getting away from it a little more. Like I really want to start going back to working like purely in physical media. I think there's a tendency to overwork things, and that ability to zoom in, like pinch and zoom everything. I think I think you can kind of work yourself into a corner with a lot of that sometimes, and I think and this goes back to what I had brought up earlier, which has been a common theme for me lately, which is am I being overly cautious or am I being confident? And I think Procreate gives you the ability to really nitpick every little thing you do and perfect every little thing you do, and what you wind up with can wind up looking really perfectly manicured and just a little too clean and just stiff. So there is a part of me that really wants to get back to physical media, but that's a whole other tangent. But no, I mean,
I think you used the digital very well in this case. And I think it, like, without getting to a full tutorial here, so what do the layers look like in Procreate so that you can change the colors so easily?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we can get into how to make a sausage. I have my iPad in front of me. I might be able to just pull this up really quickly so you can see that I'm like well over 100 layers on this project.
See, that just seems like a nightmare. I like how the piece is right in front of me, and it is what it is.
Yeah, no, it's a double-edged sword. Being able to just keep adding layers, it's definitely really handy, but it can really bite you in the ass. But what I will say is it this one? I've got two of them in front of me. I think it's this one. So I don't know how well I'll be able to show this, but there's a really, really interesting thing I did in order to get that gradient. Actually, I have it pulled up right here. So here we go. This is the Procreate file.
Okay.
And
so it's a bit darker in what I just saw though with the JPEG on the slide deck.
I mean, it might honestly just be one screen
brightness,
going into a camera. So I have my layers pulled up right here. And if you can see this, let me try not to get the glare with the window there.
Yeah.
So those are all, I start with just making a square of like the lightest light gray that I have. And this is where I will use the scale of 1 to 10. And I'll just make the whole screen size. And what I'm going to do is just cut out the background and duplicate it and set everything to multiply. So now you have a blank sky and you have a slightly darker layer. And then you go through and you cut out the next layer, duplicate it, multiply, cut out the next layer. So
it's like background, midground.
Yeah. So this is, and again, I mentioned it very briefly in the beginning of this, but I was an animator before I did this, and this is how I would do paper cutout animation. Is I would just layer each layer from foreground to background of what each of the elements are, and they just get progressively darker as they get closer to the screen or closer to the foreground. And then, I've got, a whole bird layer on top of that. I have an entire folder here that is just my shadows. I have an entire layer that is like just my highlights. and then there's just like
And then you like adjust
all
the
these.
opacity basically.
Oh
Or
yeah,
like,
there's all these reference layers, like even that helmet, like you can really see like how many different layers are going on with that, how many different layers are like on that bird drawing, like you can be as overly cautious as you want, and you can, try a bunch of different things and turn them off or on and see what works. Um, I mean, I don't know if you can read any of that from here, but one of these layers that's off is layer 113. Like I'm fucking maxing the shit out, like,
damn.
it's so.
I think it's cool though, man, because like that's like my weakness is like all that, because it's like I just find it confusing. And then like once I figure it out, I'm like, oh, that
Mhm.
doesn't feel right. It's like it feels like I'm cheating some ways. And I'm not, and there's no shade to anybody's digital or you or anything. It's
Yeah,
just like it's weird how like I kind of like
yeah.
I'm like a caveman sometimes with this shit, because like I really don't, my Procreate knowledge is so limited.
I think cheating is honestly a fair word. I think it's a method that gives you an unbelievable amount of control, and it really lets you just kind of just perfectly fine tailor. I mean, if you have the time to dedicate to it, then yes, you can make anything look like whatever you want it to. There's really no limitations to how you can do it. um I think ultimately, like, you can get a little too carried away and you can lose the soul of a piece doing it that way. I think the expressiveness and the risk taking that comes with making a mark on paper uh lends a great deal to the soul of a piece.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, years from now, decades from now, when people go through our portfolios and they see, like, what our work looks like, this doesn't exist in the real world. This is only a digital thing, like, and I mean, aside from the fact that records got printed, so
Yeah.
there are copies of this on vinyl, but there's no physical original. And I don't love that. Like, I
Yeah.
really
I feel
like
you.
knowing that there's a physical piece out in the world for what I'm working on.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you're saying. I guess I when I said cheating, that I don't actually feel that way. I feel like it's too easy. It's not cheating. Cheating is AI. Feeling too easy, I
Mhm.
will stand by that. Sometimes it feels too easy, but yet at the same time, I don't even know how to do it. So I'm just a hypocrite in that capacity, anyways.
Well,
But
I mean, it's.
because I don't want to be misunderstood there, I
Mhm.
agree with your point of traditional versus digital and just having that tangible thing to stand by your portfolio.
Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah, of course. And I think where it does become a really amazing tool is where you're doing 5 different painting studies right now, and going back and forth between different things. I think this doesn't have the same benefit of getting you acquainted with the tool itself that you're going to be using, but for figuring out what your options are and seeing what your options are going to look like ahead of time, it's so efficient, especially when you're not going through 10 more of these, in order to go through all your different versions for your studies and whatnot. So as a tool for making studies and as a tool for making stencils for my clients, the efficiency is a huge thing for me. Not burning through a ton of resources. I used to go through those Scarlet Red Color Race Prismacolor colored pencils, every other week, and yeah, I just have one of these silly little things. So,
Well, and adjusting and being able to adjust for particular clients. I mean, that's a big thing. I
hmm.
um I one interview on the channel I think you would really like in particular would be the Merald von Hosternen episode.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Merald is an amazing artist, but the thing that I think is so cool with him is he does these tonal colored pencil pieces and then he digitizes them and then does all the coloring digital. And what you get is
Cool.
this cool marriage of he has the original, but
Uh-huh.
then you have this digital final piece that he can still manipulate. And
Yeah.
like the
Uh-huh.
Necrot latest album he did,
Oh, okay. He did the
Amorphous.
Necrot album. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's I looked at his work a lot because with the colored pencil connection, I'm
Yeah.
always trying to like learn from him and just really stand up guy. But I think the way he explains how he does both, you would really like you can
Cool.
learn a
Yeah.
little bit from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've watched a handful of your episodes now. I haven't gotten to that one yet, but it's going on the list for sure.
Cool,
Hmm.
sweet. Well, once again, this piece, I'm amazed by it. I love it.
Thank you so much.
So we talked about this one.
Hmm.
So this, I want to know what the story is behind this.
Oh my God. So this was a commission. Um, this was a commission from Jordan, aka Guarsenio Hall, who did 2 Minutes to Late Night.
Yeah.
And this was commissioned from him as his stage outfit for his band Blood Vulture. Blood Vulture put a record
Which
out last
Morald
year.
did the work for that.
Hey, there we go.
So
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
another
yeah.
connection.
Yeah. Okay. Very familiar with Morald's work then. Yeah. Killer stuff. So yeah, he was really, really down to let me do my thing with this. And the way that this started is so fucking stupid. So I have a ton of denim vests. I have a ton of denim jackets. I've like painted all of them. Like I love doing that sort of stuff. But the reason this is stupid is because I saw it on TikTok, and I saw someone on TikTok take a bandana and like do this process where they like bleached out a crackle pattern in it. And I was just like, what if I make that way more complicated than it is? I bet I can. So it's actually sitting right next to me. I'll show you. This is the original one.
Okay.
So this is the jacket that I wear pretty regularly, and this was me just being like, okay, how does this process work? And like, I've done it to. I started it with a couple pairs of shorts. I've done it to a pair of jeans, and then this jacket for Jordan was the third one that I've done. And it's basically, taking this article of clothing, casting it in plaster, and then once that is fully cured, you basically break it apart and then paint the entire thing. So you can see like where that like big crunchy looking fully red jacket is in the center there.
Yeah.
That is like hours and hours and hours of just like sponge painting, the whole thing, and making sure that all that paint is getting in between the cracks in the plaster. And it's 2 coats, and it's a bitch. It is. I really love how these jackets turn out. I think they're so cool, but it is one of the most labor intensive projects I've ever taken on. Where, once that paint really settles in, you have to give it a lot of time. And then, in order to get that plaster off, you kind of need to do it by hand. Because if that plaster gets into a drain, it's going to clog that drain. So it's not like something you can just like blast it in the shower and let it just dissolve off. Because first of all, it won't. So it's like a really long process of like just grinding all this plaster off of the denim, because it adheres to it really well, which is how you get the resist effect from it. But yeah, it's a cool project, and it's like a weird thing that I've started taking on. And I'm glad someone was like, I'll give you money for it.
That's cool. So if you can't put the plaster down the drain, then I guess what is your setup so that you know how to deal with the plaster once you apply like the water and stuff on it, or like how does that work now?
I have been going to the little 99-cent store by my house and just getting like a $2 shower curtain
Mm.
and just like laying it out in my yard and just like getting on my big heavy work gloves so it doesn't like rip my fingers apart and just like mushing the jacket up and just like really scraping all that plaster off my hand and just collecting it in a shower curtain so it doesn't get all over my yard. And the plaster is flower based. So, I've got two little dogs that are being so well behaved today. But they'll try to eat the plaster. So they're covered in paint. So, I got to be really good about not making a mess. I have, I've learned a lot, in the process of making these. I haven't quite figured out the most efficient way to do this yet, but I've figured out how to make it less hell on myself. But
Like, would an electric sander work at all, or not really?
well, I think that would start to really fuck up the denim,
Oh, okay.
But I will say, like the white jacket behind me, like this is almost a year old now. I'm sort of running a scumbag experiment where I'm like, I'm not going to wash it for a full year and see how it fares. Uh, I want to know how the paint's going to hold up. It's been doing fine. I was also really curious as to what a white jacket is going to look like after not washing it for a year and, being a feral ghoul that goes out partying a lot. And you know, it's gross. I don't know.
Hey man, you said
But,
you listened to Crust, so what else could we expect?
yeah. It's not quite freight hopping levels of gross, but it's been on a lot of bar floors at this point.
That's funny. What about these?
Oh yeah. So I actually, you asked for a bunch of different images to send you, and I wanted to put these in there because these are a decade old, if not older. So I wanted to show you what some of my work looked like, when I was like really kind of first getting into my stride as a painter, as an illustrator. I was about 5 years into my tattooing career at this point, and this is when I had like really started to first pick up a lot of commissioned illustration work. So, the like Tower of Babel skull on the right, that was a commission for this band Ramming Speed, originally from Boston. Then they all moved down to Richmond. Jonah Livingston, phenomenal drummer, incredible dude. He was playing drums in that band. He's currently playing in a band called Loud Night. And he is married to a phenomenal tattoo artist and painter named Ellie Jo Livingston.
Oh yeah, she's been on the show.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, so full circle. I was gonna say I would be surprised if you weren't familiar with
she's cool.
Ellie's work. We've never met in person. I'm like dying.
Oh, you guys would get along just great.
I'm dying to meet
delight.
Her. I love her husband so much, and I have yet to meet her. And I have nothing but positive things to say about her. And she's someone who, from the moment she started tattooing, she's fucking good. And she's just she's incredible, incredible tattooer and just always has been. So one of those people where it's like, fuck you, this is hard for some of us.
It does seem like she keeps getting better too, which is awesome.
Yeah. She's great. So the other skull is kind of a funny story. I'm a really big proponent of continuing education classes. And this is the product of a class I took at the School of Visual Arts in New York. Like 2015, I did this watercolor course where I was like, I really want to start taking this more seriously. I want more tools in my arsenal. And I did not get along with the instructor at all. Like every week I would show up to this class, and, the thing I love about continuing ed courses is it's like $400 for a semester. So it's really, really, really affordable. And I've taken other courses that I've gotten like so much out of, if you're, not going for like a full, like degree, like a college degree in art, this is a really, really incredible, really accessible way to go. I'm a huge proponent of it. I highly recommend anyone that is, trying to sharpen their skills, fucking do this shit. It's great. Counterpoint, I didn't get along with this instructor at all. Every day I'd go to this class and, there'd be oranges in a bowl on a table. And he would just be like, yeah, watercolor is really relaxing. It's just like it's like a nice thing that you can do. And, we're just gonna paint some oranges. And, I'm a miserable, stressed out person who's just like, fuck you, dude. I got deadlines. Like, give me some, like, what are we doing here? And, I also kind of went into it being like, this is a $400 investment. If I'm not going to get anything out of it, at the very least, it's structured painting time. And that's kind of what I did. So like the last couple of weeks of the class, I was just like, I just want to work on my own stuff. So, he'd be like, here's more oranges in a bowl. And I have this like, photograph of a human skull that I had taken, like set up on my iPad in front of me. And I'm like, just working on my own paintings. And this was the product of that was, me just kind of being like, well, I'm not getting graded. I'm just going to work on my own thing.
So he just wasn't, was he just like phoning it in basically or what? Or did he really think watercolor is just relaxing?
I don't necessarily think he was phoning it in. I think he was just really appealing to a very beginner level and appealing to people who were not looking to pursue this, in a very professional manner, where, watercolor can be relaxing. Watercolor can be a really, really meditative, wonderful artistic practice that you don't have to have a professional grade final result from. That's not the point of art, like I don't think he was wrong. I just think I was the wrong student for him.
Yeah.
So I don't dislike him, as a person. I don't dislike him as an instructor. It was just like absolutely not what I was looking for. And I was, surly enough to just be like, I don't care.
I get it.
But no, so this is one of the very, very early watercolor pieces I did that I was like really proud of. And also it kind of showed me that I was like, shit, I've been, doing watercolor paintings for about 10 years now, 11 years now.
I really like the blend of different types of edges on it. You got some hard edges, some soft edges, like cool transitions. There's like, a semi unfinished quality to it, like in a really charming way that I really like. This is a really solid piece.
Thank you. And I agree. I think, there's a part of me that absolutely would have continued rendering the living fuck out of this piece. And, ultimately I did this in a 3-hour classroom setting where, 3 hours was up and this is where I was at. And I was like, I'll pick it up tomorrow. And then every day I'd pick it back up and just be like, shit, it's done. Like, no, This is it. And like you can really faintly see some pencil lines where there were supposed to be more teeth rendered in there. And, I think, I think it just, it really does have a really nice balance of like rendered and unrendered where like, you get the spirit of the thing without overworking it. So we were talking about references or inspirations earlier as well. There is a watercolor artist named Nita Engel, and I bought a book of hers called How to Make a Watercolor Paint Itself. And I was like really, really, really going through that book when I was working on this painting. I've gotten so much out of this book, and it took me so long to wrap my head around it. If you ever get a chance to find it, I feel like you would really, really, really appreciate it.
What are some of the teachings?
So it
and what was it called again?
How to Make a Watercolor Paint Itself.
It was Nita Engel.
Yep. Actually, I lent my copy to a friend of mine, and I really need to get it back because I really want to go through it again. But all the examples of paintings that she was doing were these gorgeous, like really lush, really dynamic, like really realistic scenes. And there were cityscapes, there were like nature scenes, there were all these really, really cool things. And she would walk through her process, and so much of it was like, okay, so here's how you set up the board. Here's what you're going to do first. Take a spray bottle and load it up with ink and then just blast it, just go crazy and just like throw all these different colors and just make it. And she would just make this like tornado of a mess on the paper and then let it dry. And she'd be like, I just stare at it for 2 days. And, I would just look at it, and then I would just dive back into it and just start like lifting things here, putting in details here, pulling pieces out here, loading and loading and loading. And then you flip the page and the end result is this like unbelievably gorgeously rendered piece. And it's just like, how the fuck did you do that? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
just has the chaos to begin with.
Yeah. And
takes away the fear of the blank page though.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And, that's something that I really need to start incorporating into my own work again, rather than like, really meticulously pre-planning, like really meticulously kind of going through and like every single thing is so deliberate and so tightly controlled, and just really like, go back to like flood the paper, work wet on wet, work quick, move along, just kind of keep adding and adding and adding because you can subtract later, and just let it get weird.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. I'm going to take a look at that.
Oh, yeah. I'm interested to hear what you think about it. So the exact opposite of Nita Engel. Yeah, this I love these. I painted these about a year ago, and as far as being a tattooer goes, something I get asked pretty often is, do you have flash? Do you do flash tattoos? And I don't have a lot, because this is what happens is that, every time I try to make something that I think is like, like a good, like palm-sized tattoo drawing, it just snowballs and it turns into this like massive, massive, massive time-consuming project. And this was one of those things. This started out as me being like, I want to put some tattoo flash together. I want to, showcase like what I really want to be working on and what I'd love to be doing as a tattooer, which is like very Gothic architecture, very tightly controlled kind of work. And I had initially done these, I started them as like, Copic marker sketches on tracing paper, made line drawings in Procreate, fully rendered these in Procreate as digital drawings. And, my wife, Meg, who's, incredible photographer and, really, really supportive partner, was just like, okay, you're done. That's your flash. Post it online. And I was like, no. She's like, what are you talking about? Just post them. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do these as watercolor paintings. Like I'm going to paint these. And, she was like getting really frustrated with me as to why I was going to like, make this such a bigger project. And I think a lot of what tattoo flash should be, aside from like, here's what you can get as a tattoo, is here's what I'm bringing to the table as a tattooer. Like, here's my contribution to tattooing. So I think there's a part of it that like, you really should be putting your best work forward. You really should be putting like a maximum effort into what you're doing. And, there's also this very petty side of me that is like, all right, we got all these people that are hopping into tattooing thinking they're hot shit and posting all the work that they have. Here's what I have. Like, step your fucking game up,
Yeah.
But so I wanted something that was going to be like difficult to pull off as a painting, really, really a challenge for me to do, but still, accessible, that if someone wanted to get this tattooed, I could pull it off. But also like, I was hoping other artists would see something like this and be like, oh, yeah, I want to do some shit like that too,
Yeah, these are awesome, man.
Thank you.
Are,
Yeah.
how big are they each?
So this is 10 by 16. They're small.
They're gorgeous.
Each one of them is like palm sized. They're not big pieces, but again, I learned a lot working on them, and I think there's a lot of ways I would do them a little more efficiently, but I like them. I like how they turned out. I like, my goal was to exert maximum control over a medium that does not like to be controlled, and I think I pulled it off pretty well. So,
well, you actually just inspired me. You talked about how you were like hoping to inspire other people. So, not to bring it up about me, it's more about you.
Oh,
I'm looking at these and I'm like, it is based on reality with these Gothic forms of them having this three dimensionality to them, like the form. And the piece that I'm working on right now, I have some shapes here in the corner that have been kind of like they look kind of cool flat. But now I'm looking at, especially this one in the top right, and I'm like, I love the three dimensionality of it. I'm going to get some reference, some Gothic architecture. I'm going to make these shapes a little more three dimensional too, like that.
Cool.
So just that, I'm going to nab that idea a little bit.
I mean, you're already there with that piece too. Like it's not a big stretch to be like, oh, how are you going to do that? It's like, no, it's there. Like you can clearly see. That's awesome.
So I'll probably even just take one of these and just like the idea of how you did those, because you have like basically the shadow, you have like the regular surface, then you have like the highlight surface. I'm like, okay, I need to see how you do it, look at reference and reality. Yeah, I'll probably draw off that.
It's very high on my current to-do list to get prints made of this. You have to send me your address and I will send you one.
Appreciate it.
I'll put a little shipping tube together and send you some stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, these are amazing, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I do not want to rush you, but we are at 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we have quite a bit more pictures. So
I never stop talking. Sorry.
No, this is a great combo. I'm just realizing I'm gonna have to have dinner at some point. So if there's a good story, please tell it. But if not, we'll just talk about the art and kind of
let's move on.
So what about this one?
Cool. This was something I completed pretty recently. I have done a series of tattoo flash that I've just been calling battle birds. And, people seem to really like them. And, it's two things I really love, which is this, like very like medieval kind of styling and, like birds. I love drawing birds. I love tattooing birds. And, this is one where I just really wanted to, play around with a lot more color and like, get a little more lush with color, get a little weirder with color and let it just kind of like do its thing.
It's amazing. And this is watercolor as well?
Yep. Watercolor. And then, no, this is all watercolor. Like even that like really bright, like fuchsia is this, this pigment that I picked up a while ago that like feels pretty similar to gouache. I think it's like kind of straddling that line.
Yeah, some of them are higher opacity for sure. And what watercolor brand, and do you work off like a pan or do you do tubes of paint and put them on like a palette? What do you typically do?
I do almost entirely Winsor and Newton. I have a couple of like one-off tubes of, like I'll find a color that I really like, but I've found like trying to limit my palette and just stick to like just the Winsor and Newton ones is really helpful for me. But then, at the end of a project, it's like, now we're going to throw this like weird fuchsia in there. Why not?
I definitely am having the problem of widening my palette too much. So I agree.
Yeah, it's a big fear of mine working in color is that I don't want to accidentally paint the rainbow. I don't want to have so many colors that there's no color definition anymore.
Yeah.
So trying to keep everything within like a good, a good limited palette has been really helpful for me. And then, once you've found that you've hit the boundary of that palette, if you're in the middle of a piece and you're like, well, now it calls for this, go for it, but try to limit it to start at least.
It's a great point. As I think of all the paintings I've done that I don't do that, but yeah, dude,
Well,
that's an excellent point.
it helps me for option paralysis, because otherwise I'm just
Totally.
like, oh, it's all available. I don't know which one to start with.
Absolutely. So this is Psycho Las Vegas.
Yeah, yeah. I got commissioned to do this as a billboard for Psycho Las Vegas in 2018.
That's crazy. A
Uh,
billboard.
yeah, no, it was awesome. They actually had it as a big digital display in the lobby of the Hard Rock Hotel. So it's like 21 feet wide, like when you walked in, and it was just like so cool to see. Like I was like really like, it was one of those commissions I got where I was like, I made it,
Yeah, that's neat, man.
Yeah, I really hope Psycho comes back in some form or another. It is the coolest. It is just the coolest fest. I've met so many people that I'm still like really good friends with there. I've seen so many bands that I absolutely love. I played in a band that got to play Psycho in
Wow.
2022, but this was a project that I was like, I'm going to go as over the top with this as I possibly can. So this was pen and ink illustration on Bristol, and then entirely colored digitally, where I was like, I just want that like, sleazy Las Vegas, like, neon lights, like underlit pool kind of vibe, just, real Where's Waldo level of details, and just like, kind of like insane, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas kind of drug trip sort of vibe.
It's fucking awesome, man. And it's like just shows how creative you are too. Very imaginative, I guess is
Thank
the
you.
exact word I'm looking for. Like you take something that's familiar, then you're like, I'm gonna make these fingers all fucking crazy, and then I love using snakes to convey motion. You do an excellent job there. It's really
Thank
beautiful
you.
work, man.
No, I appreciate that. This is a piece that I got to do that it just doesn't translate over the internet. You like something this wild. It just doesn't fit on an Instagram reel. Like it. So I'm glad I get an opportunity to talk about it now, because I really really loved this project and just dumped a fuck ton of time into it. But yeah, no, I mean, any chance I get to, do like weird melty hands like this that are just, kind of turning into demons and stuff, this is a motif that I've really carried on into a lot of my other work, and, plan to continue in the future.
Absolutely. So, a couple of tattoos.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I've been talking about tattoos all day and haven't really gotten any of these. No, I mean, again, I'm so grateful that I've got clients that are down to let me just like get weird, and will just kind of give me like a rough idea, and then let me just kind of do my thing with it. And these are two really good examples of that. They're like pretty metal, like interesting kind of concepts that it's just like, I don't know, I've never seen this before. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I mean, how much of it is prompt versus you kind of going crazy with it? Like, I mean, what do you prompt for the thing on the left there?
Yeah, so this is actually a depiction of the three fates, with
okay.
with the thread of fate. So each one of them, it's been years since I've done this, so I'm blanking on their names, but each one of them has a role in fate, in
I just think back to
classic
Hercules.
mythologies. Yeah. So as far as classic mythologies goes, so there are things that I was able to pull from historically as references to what they are. But my client was down to do from their hip all the way down the thigh, so it's a really really large canvas to work on. And it was a great way to really kind of get these three cascading figures where I could really treat it like character design and really give them their each like really, really interesting, identities and personas, and get to do these really, really lush textures, which I'm a huge fan of doing a lot of interesting texture and tattoo work. So that was a really, really cool piece that I got to do, and I really love how it turned out.
Awesome. And what about this one on the right?
Yeah, this was like a really cool take that this client wanted to do on Cerberus. Of this like three-headed wolf, but they were just like, he was like, I just want like eyes and teeth everywhere. So it's almost like, how would you do Cerberus as a way that it fits as like a full chest piece and feels like a very cool self-contained kind of chest piece, but would be like, I don't know, like what if the Thing got to Cerberus, like,
Yeah.
That was a lot of my inspiration for that, was just like, how do you have it like just kind of mutating, like teeth and fangs and eyes just, like kind of emerging out of the fur. Like there's just some kind of weird creature bubbling up inside of it.
It's awesome, man. And, it's such a cool thing to just be able to take the initial idea and just be like, all right, there's so many cool directions you can go with it. Awesome.
Yeah, and again, it's really helpful that my clients are down to sit for these long consultations with me, where like I'm gonna draw a lot of different ideas up in front of them and be like, how do you feel about this? Like, what if we do it this way? And because I think if someone were to just send me an email saying like I want Cerberus with eyes and teeth, it would be impossible for me to just like pull this out on my own. With no guidance and no feedback, like I really need that like collaborative sort of like back and forth in order to make this work.
Definitely. What about these?
Yeah. So yeah, one on the left, that goes back to those battle birds we were talking about. This is an example of Flash. Actually, both of these are examples of Flash that I've drawn. I mostly do things that people come to me where, I'm doing custom tattoos for my clients. And these are two examples of things that I had actually drawn up ahead of time and, just posted on the internet, and people were really into it and were down to get them tattooed. So, the things I love are birds, skulls, Gothic and medieval armor and architecture, and like real cyberpunky, like techie kind of stuff.
You can see a little bit of the Jeff Darrow Deathburger influence with the one on the right for sure, in a really cool way.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge William Gibson fan.
Nice.
Who wrote Neuromancer and, the Sprawl trilogy, the Bridge trilogy. I love that sort of stuff. So, anything that has that like really like hyper futuristic kind of cyberpunk sort of thing, I'm like so drawn to that kind of stuff. Terminator 2, I got to see it in theaters when I was like 8, and it just like lived in my brain ever since.
That's awesome. Do you read a lot of sci-fi now, or specifically you like a lot of Gibson stuff?
I do. I'm actually I'm reading what's this? God, it's Peter Watts as an author.
Blindsight?
Yeah.
I just finished it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm like halfway through it right now.
Okay. Oh God, I told you we had to cut it short. Okay, so
oh my God, I know. Yeah, Ian,
Blindsight is brilliant, but it's dense. It's a little hard to follow everything, but God, there's a lot of cool concepts in it, right?
I think that's why I like it. And I know Gibson is really the same way. Like there's no hand holding in the concepts. It'll just throw the name of like a really insane made up thing at you, and you just have to figure out what it is from the context of the story. And Peter Watts is like that times 10, where it's really, really dense. He's talking about like the Icarus array, and never once tells you what the Icarus array is. You just have to figure it out from how they mention it in conversations. And I'm like 200 pages in this book, and I'm like, I think I know what it is. I don't know.
I that's kind of, To me, people who don't get what Peter Watts is doing, either they're not. First of all, I think the guy's brilliant. I think the guy's a genius, probably. You could just tell he's got an extremely high IQ. But for anyone who's interested in reading the book, don't worry about some of the scientific references going over your head. Some of the shit he's just making up, to be honest. But some of it is based in reality. I have a page that I bookmarked on my phone. It has an explanation of all the vocabulary words that he uses, and that could be helpful.
That's awesome.
I'll send it to you. But yeah, it's one that you kind of do have to take your time and do a little bit of studying. But the concepts of the book, the philosophical concepts, and then also, I don't want to spoil anything, but basically, you can enjoy the book without getting so deep into the science stuff. But the thing is, like, he has so many ideas in that book that could just be their own books.
Yeah, they're
like,
so dense.
The idea of that, like, heaven, artificial reality thing. Like, it's just like a 2-page idea, but it's like it's its own books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a literal whole universe that he's just sort of like, oh well, this just exists, but it's over there. Whatever. We're still talking about the space expedition to meet an alien life form that is being led by a vampire.
Yeah, but it's cool.
It's
the
crazy
vampire thing is, and it's scientifically explained.
And that's what kills me is that, like, you know, I read the book jacket before I picked it up because someone recommended this book to me, and I was like, that's the premise. This sounds fucking stupid.
No, that's cool.
And then, you know, you get like 20 pages into the book and he pulls this really obscure reference, or, you know, he mentions this one thing and you're like, God damn it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. I'm back. All right. I'm in, you know, so he takes a lot of risks.
And I like, I think despite him just he's a hard science guy. I think the romance story he has in it is actually pretty good. I like it. It's like you could mess that part up so easily if you're like a hard science writer. But so where are you right now?
I'm very much in the middle of the book. I'm in the without giving anything away, the Rorschach. Like I'm okay. There's Rorschach in the book.
Okay.
So I'm there, and we're pretty in the middle of the romance section.
Okay. The way he describes the Rorschach is so cool when you actually finally see it.
Yeah, like I finally just got to that. So I feel like
it's like a crown of thorns interweaving it. Like, God, it's so interesting. You're reading that book right now. I finished it about a month and a half ago. But so one thing, it took me embarrassingly long to realize what the Gang of Four is. Do you understand that concept?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it would have been nice if he handheld you a little bit more with that. Because I'm like, how many people are in this crew? So, okay. That part took me a little bit.
Yeah, where, you know, he's like, oh, yeah, there's 5 of us on this crew. And then he's talking about 9 different people.
Yeah, I was so confused.
And then, you know, trying to figure out who is who because he's not describing anyone. He's just giving you, you know, it's a lot. You know, if you're the type of person that likes to take notes during a book, this is... no, it's funny. Ian, the bassist of Kowloon Walled City, is the one who recommended this to me.
Okay.
Yeah, big fan of that dude, and big fan of that band. He's someone that, you know, just has an internet presence, and I'm just kind of an internet punisher. Like, he posts stuff online and I'm just like, tell me more, you know? So, you know, I finally got to meet him like last year, but otherwise I just bug him on the internet a lot. And, you know, he mentioned something about a book and I was like, tell me about this book. What do you recommend? So
he liked it, I imagine.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Anybody who's interested in reading sci-fi, I'd probably work up to it a little bit. At least that's what I did. I think if I just was like, I mean, it's not easy to read, but the payoff's there.
Yeah, I think if you're new to sci-fi or if you want to get into it, I think Burning Chrome from William Gibson is a really good place to start. His short stories, and if you want to go even more accessible than that, watch Johnny Mnemonic. Watch the movie Johnny Mnemonic.
Never heard of
Ice-T
it.
is in it.
Johnny Mnemonic.
I'm giving you homework. I'm giving you fucking homework. You're going to have to report back to me now. You have to watch Johnny Mnemonic. It's a William Gibson short story. It's Keanu Reeves. The actress from Starship Troopers, whose name I can never remember.
The
Dolph
main
Lundgren.
character? Oh, Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah. Ice-T, Henry Rollins, and it's based off of a Gibson short story. So it's this insane cyberpunk movie. It was sandwiched in between Speed and The Matrix for Keanu's career.
It was like late 90s, kind of.
Yeah, like 97? And like the technology was not quite there to pull this story off like it should be.
Yeah.
It is this fucking phenomenal cyberpunk movie. And I didn't finally watch it until like 2021. And it's so good. It's so good. I love this movie. It's the way that they depict like cyberspace in 97. Incredible.
Hell yeah.
My favorite character that like I'm doing illustration work for my own band Hyperpsychic, featuring one of the characters from the story, which is Jones, the psychic dolphin who has a heroin addiction.
Oh my God.
It's a real character in the story. Cybernetically augmented dolphin that can only handle itself through a cocktail of heroin, but has psychic abilities.
See, I like that batshit stuff. Yeah, that sounds fucking awesome.
Oh, it's so good.
All right. Mm-hmm. So here's what I'll watch that movie at some point next couple weeks. When as you're making progress in Blindside, or when you're done, we should chat about it.
Yeah, we should keep this dialogue going.
Because it's book club style. Because that's a book you can't just be. Once you get to a certain point, you got to talk to somebody about it. So that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man. I've talked about reading the last couple episodes, so I'll spare people because I went on giant rants and not rants, discussions. I'm very much in a reading mode right now, so I get super excited about.
We could go for a long time for sure.
Yeah. All right. What about these two here?
So these are examples of like the very technical kind of illustration work that I feel like I've been able to kind of contribute to tattooing. These are pieces that I'm pretty sure the photo on the right is actually a healed photo of this tattoo.
Wow.
But yeah, that one's got to be about 2 or 3 years old now. The one on the left is easily 4 or 5 years old now. I know I have a healed photo of that one somewhere as well, but I came up in an era of tattooing that was like bold will hold. You can't get needlessly detailed with this sort of stuff. And, I've really kind of made a career out of like figuring out where that line is and figuring out like, well, how do you make a really nuanced, detailed tattoo withstand the test of time? What does it need to withstand the test of time? What kind of maintenance does it need? And, 15 years into my career, I'm starting to see a lot of my work come back from, like 10 to 15 years ago. And, I think there's definitely what I would say an allowable tolerance for touch-ups with tattoos. And I think, whether you're doing like bright color work, you're doing, kind of bolder traditional, or, if you're really kind of doing this fine line stuff, and, how capable is it of being touched up? Does it need a touch up? And, even work that I've done, like 11, 12 years ago, I've seen come back to me where I'm like, damn, all that detail's still there. It's just light. I think, if you're good about taking care of your tattoos, if you're good about using sunscreen, like I've seen a lot of this stuff withhold the test of time in ways that I was surprised by. And, I would not put hyper detailed work on my clients if I was not confident that it was going to serve them for a very long time, and that if it needed a touch up, it can be done, and I've got work on me. Like I've got a lot of work on me, but I've got work on me, that was done by people that, swore up and down, like you have to do this like bold will hold kind of work. Like you have to do American traditional tattooing. If you're not an American traditional tattooer, you're not a tattooer, like this is how I came up. And a lot of that work on me looks like black blobs. It looks shitty, like it's a sort of thing where, I don't know how I would salvage that now. It's just kind of like a mess that doesn't look like anything. And if I really wanted to cover it with something else, I'd have to blast it with some lasering. So very long-winded to say, yes, this is technical tattooing.
No, that's good, man.
Oh, that's a fun one. Okay, so this is the cover art for my band, Hyperpsychic. We put out an EP in 2022 called Deeper Psychosis, and I was like, okay, this is my band. I'm really going to go all out and like make an insane record cover. So the one on the left was the study I did for it, because I was initially like, I think this would be really cool if I did it in watercolor. Mm-hmm. And this is a quick study. I used really shitty paper. I wasn't trying too hard when I started it. So, the sketch was really loose. I think I drew that sketch in like 10 minutes. So the proportions are really wonky. The paper did not react how I want it to. Like you can look at the very, very top edge of that paper. You can see where it bled weird, and that's just because it was bound with a shitty glue. This is bad paper. But, so I at least got a sense of what I wanted it to look like, and then decided like, all right, this is going to be done pen and ink. And I was having a lot of conversations with our mutual friend, Caroline Harrison, while I was working on this. And she kind of bullied me into doing this with full quill nibs, which kind of regret. It was just such a time consuming process, but, the line work, I still stand behind on this. I really like it. And I, same thing, super Where's Waldo. I want as much detail in this as possible. I really wanted to, have this feel really claustrophobic, have it feel really like, stressful to look at. And really, really, really went really heavy with the pre-planning of this. It's based off of a photo of our singer, Molly Scarpine, incredible vocalist and voice actress. So, it's taking a photo of Molly, turning that into a drawing, doing a separate drawing of like a full cybernetic skull, and then doing a separate drawing of this like melting skin, with all this like weird kind of stuff coming out of it. And then, trying to merge those three into one thing, having this big border going around it, figuring out where I can fit a logo in it. And then, making that one cohesive composition, inking the whole thing, and then coloring it digitally. And this is actually where we can go revisit the digital coloring conversation, because I can show you on my iPad really quickly. I have 15 different versions of this album cover, and when the day comes that I ever actually do get this pressed to vinyl, if we do make record covers, that's not the cover I'm going to go with. I ultimately was not really happy with how that coloring came out. And you can kind of see, like, I've got so many different versions of it that I've done. I mean, wait, here, let me pull that back up. Where's the one I like even 3 years later, I will just pull that up and be like, I don't know, I kind of want to work it differently, and I'll just like redo the coloring in it, and redo all those textures, and really try to make it a more cohesive sort of thing. I'm just, because it's digital, I that's doable. I can, it's never going to let me rest. Uh,
It's like you're enslaved by it.
That watercolor is fucking done. I can't touch that anymore. Although, to be fair, it was unfinished for a really long time. And I actually went back and have been picking away at it. Every couple of months, I'll just, put a couple more hours into it. And I would finally call it done only as of like 2 or 3 months ago.
Is this that version?
Yeah. So the one on the left is actually the last version that I've done of all this, because there's just something about it. I just really wanted to keep going with it. I really wanted to keep exploring, those textures, and, really try to make it feel more cohesive, and, keep pushing it as a study, and, use those ideas down the line somewhere else.
I mean, I really like both of them. The one on the left, the study, I mean, you call it study, I think it looks final to me. It looks really good. I think what you're saying with like the paper, like that obviously probably not warps. It would adjust your perception of the quality of it, because I see the flat final thing, on a digital format. It looks really nice. And then the one on the right, I mean, it's just you took it to 11. It's pretty bonkers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they both are cool. I like the muted skulls of the one on the left there. They're kind of more subdued in the background. But it's really it's a matter of preference. But yeah, you basically have two different style approaches, just right next to each other. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the pen and ink illustration, the quill nib illustration, is something that I'm so proud of. I really, really love that drawing. I put a ton of work into it that I think really paid off, and I'm really like, I felt very accomplished for it. And then, it's one of those things where like you have a release date set, and I did the thing that my clients do to me all the time, which is just like, hey, we need the artwork right now. This album's coming out. And you're like, fuck. And I did it to myself. So, it was just like, all right, I need to color this. Like, I need to do the digital coloring of this, and I need to just like get it up. And I think that's why I keep going back and recoloring it, is because I'm just like, I think I was a little too hasty. And, I get to shit talk this a little bit because I'm my own client and it was for me, where, if this was for a band that paid me good money for, I would be a little more reserved with my critiques of my own work.
Yeah.
But I think it was a learning experience of like, if you're going to work in color and do digital color, then like you need to spend more time with it. You just treat it more seriously. If you're going to put 120 hours into the pre-production and the inking, don't put 12 into the coloring, like it's, you need more than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What do we have after this? Okay. Yeah, we got quite a bit. Okay.
I am chatty, man.
But no, I added a lot here, so.
No, I'm down to go with them. Piece on the right was kind of a portrait of my dog Lobo, who's floating around here somewhere, scaring a Grim Reaper. Which I was really happy with this one, and this is one that I had done for myself. This wasn't for a client.
Love it. Great shape design.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a tendency to make very, very vertical compositions, which I'm trying to be mindful of, because this is definitely one of them. But the one on the left was a commission. It was a commission for a really good friend of mine. His wife commissioned it for him for a present. And, he's a huge Warhammer fan. And she basically was like, I just want to commission him a painting. Just make it some Warhammer shit. Which is kind of fun because, like, I really appreciate Warhammer. I have a ton of friends that are like really well versed in it. I have an older brother who is like the most versed in it. Like he knows more about it than anyone I know. He's been collecting it and making painted figurines forever. So he's kind of my go-to on like how to do this sort of stuff, because Warhammer fans will get real nitpicky about like who's
keep it
who in a
lore
faction.
true or whatever.
Yeah, it's got to be canon. But it was fun, you know, having a client who was like, just making some Warhammer shit. I don't know. um, but yeah, that was a really fun project, and you know, I love, you know, if you look at other Warhammer art, you know, there's so many ungodly talented artists that get to do this stuff. A painter named Karl Kopinski does a lot of Warhammer work. You know, he's a beast. You know, so you know, it's a high watermark to even like attempt taking on Warhammer stuff. You know, the people that do this are so serious about it. You know, they have a level of dedication and discipline to this style of artwork that, you know, it's hard to take on. You know, it's like, you know, it's how you feel about Chrome. It's like, you know, I love this stuff, but it is, it's, you know, sometimes I feel like it's beyond my wheelhouse, where, you know, in order to really do it justice, I really got to put a lot of effort into it. But you know, this was cool, and I got to have a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, I love both of these.
Thank you. Yeah, so one on the right, that was what Dave Castillo from St. Vitus Bar asked me to do a shirt for them. And this was initially a collaboration between St. Vitus Bar and KCDC skate shop in Brooklyn. So they made a bunch of shirts. They made a bunch of skateboard decks. I've got one hanging in my house somewhere. And yeah, this was one of this is an older one. This is from 2015, and you know, this is one of the first illustration commissions I got to do for a client where I was like, that feels really successful. Like, I feel like I really successfully nailed the thing I set out to do, and I feel really good about this. And you know, it's one of my favorite places. I've been going to that place since they opened. You know, I really wanted to do right by them, and, you know, do something that they were gonna, you know, be really happy with, and, you know, the people that go there were gonna be like proud to wear. So it was definitely a fun one.
Oh yeah. What about on the left there?
The left, this is old bandmate of mine, Kirill. We used to play in a band called Bone Plow together, which is super fun band. And then he has a project called Just Me and My Gun That I'm Cleaning, which is such a fucking band name.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, he hit me up, you know, him and his buddy Ronald, who also plays in that band, also very, very cool dude. Very, very cool sludge band. This is a cool record. This is from 2 or 3 years ago now, but they asked me to do the cover for their album. And, you know, yeah, there go the puppies. Sorry. Yeah, you know, they really wanted this idea of death being killed, you know, like the death of death. And, you know, we talked about, you know, how Bernini is a huge influence of mine. And I really wanted that kind of Baroque, you know, kind of sculptural sort of feel for this. And, you know, to feel like this old, you know, kind of ancient ruined cathedral. And, yeah, so, you know, more digital coloring, a little more muted. Like, I try to keep it really, really subdued. And just keep it really dark and moody.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous piece.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm running out of things to say because I'm starting to get hungry. This is one of my favorite pieces of yours too.
Oh, thank you.
Is it all digital with this one?
No, this was pen and ink to start with, and there's a little bit of an undertone of Copic markers on this one. But this was on Bristol, so, you know, I did a couple levels of basic, you know, kind of gray shading on this.
And then
you know,
moved it.
Yeah. So there's some like warm and cool grays underneath this, and then I colored the rest of it digitally.
That's a cool blend of analog and digital. It's really good use of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it was pretty successful here, which is pretty cool. But yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. I really like this one. Yeah, and this is oil painting that I got to do. This is based off of a photograph of me holding, honestly, that same skull that I did that early watercolor painting off of. So I am, really, really fortunate. I work at Memoir Tattoo, which I'm deeply honored that I get to do. And, for the longest time, that meant that I was working with Sean Barber, who was
Mm.
at Memoir for like 15 years. And Sean Barber is just like a legendary oil painter, so unbelievably well respected in the fine art world and in the tattoo world. And I really, really did not take it for granted that I got to work alongside him. And this came from a painting seminar that he did. And he's so forthcoming with his knowledge, and he's so willing to share and just so excited for other people to get into painting and pushing and making art. And I'm just really fortunate that as far as going into oil painting goes, I you can't ask to be set up for success more than having fucking Sean Barber sitting over your shoulder while you're working, which is also pretty nerve-wracking. But I think
Makes
oil
you
is
feel comfortable.
yeah, but it's such a daunting medium to get into. It's really, really it's hard to figure out where to start with oil. It's you really need to be in the right environment for it. You really need like a whole bevy of things. We talked about that earlier. So in order to have someone to start who's going to be like, no, this is Gamsol, this is Liquin, this is what you want to use for this. These are the paints you want to use. This is a hog bristle brush. This is linen. This is board. And having someone kind of like get you set up in the beginning has been huge for me, and I'm unbelievably grateful that I had someone that I got to do a seminar with in order to do this. And yeah, I would love to do more oil in the future, but it's a question of like, okay, do I want to have the space set up for it? Do I want to make that much of a mess?
Yeah,
it's an endeavor.
that's really cool to hear. Some more tattoo work.
Yeah. Again, stuff that I really love doing, and, clients that are down to let me do like larger scale work, and do these kind of like really lush, detailed sort of things that are very skull forward.
It's amazing pieces.
Thank you. Yeah, these are some of my favorites. And, again, huge fan of doing birds. I love, rendering birds as tattoos, and, trying to make them fit the body as best as they can. And then, more of that just like very, very deeply technical work, bordering on that kind of architectural sort of style.
That's insane.
Yeah, that was definitely a headache.
I have a lot of that kind of work myself.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I can kind of relate on that
So
front.
cool. Yeah, at a later date, you and I can definitely chat more about tattoos for sure. But yeah, pieces I'm really proud of, and this fly tribute, Cronenberg tattoo.
It's awesome. It's
really
transitioning. Yeah.
I was stoked to do that, and then when I set out to actually like do the drawing for it and do a study for it, I was like, fuck, I'm doing 4 portrait tattoos at once. Like, so it was like, oh, it's a lot more work than I think it's going to be, but it was cool. It was definitely a lot of homework, like really going through the film and trying to pick out like, how to come up with that transition. And it's a good excuse to watch The Fly again. So
yeah, one of my favorite horror sci-fi movies.
For sure. Yeah, big body horror fan. Yeah.
It's the last slide. Then we got
cool.
Battle Tortoise.
Yeah, that's someone's. That's that dude's first tattoo. He was just
choice.
so down to so down to just like get into it with me, and I'm stoked. He was really down to let me make this a full color tattoo. I it's something I really like doing, and I've really been trying to push more of. And I'm really grateful that I have a lot of clients that are like, yeah, fuck yeah, do some color. Um, and then the piece on the left is on an old friend of mine named Joe. He's got a really, really sick collection of tattoos, and just wanted a demonic bat. And yeah, anytime someone's like, make me some heavy metal shit, I'm just like, this is the best. Like I get to have so much fun with pieces like this, and this one I love this tattoo because it's one of the ones I got to have the most fun doing. Like it's just such a fun design to put together.
I love the like little tattered wings, but they're like kind of like spheres and circular, like in terms of the tatters. I just like that. You use that shape. I don't know. I always think of like tears and like that. It's like Swiss cheese.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's the thing is it's kind of like a signature way that I do like tattered cloth and everything at this point, and I call it mozzarella. Mm-hmm. So I'll be doing a tattoo on someone, and it'll have like a Reaper's kind of cloak or something, and they'll be like, now we're doing the mozzarella, and I don't know that my clients appreciate that, but
oh man. All right. I didn't mean to rush you there at the end, dude. But
no,
we're 3 hours in.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate you putting up with me being so fucking talkative. It's this has been really, really fun, but I'm sure you are exhausted and hungry, and your listeners are going to see the length on this one and be like, God damn it.
No, my people enjoy it. You just chip away at it throughout the week. Before we wrap up, final, you dropped a lot of great wisdom advice. What would be like just one kind of parting thought, final piece of advice to leave people with that you could think of?
I think it's that, as illustrators, as tattoo artists, as, people that do this for a living, like it's a service job. You are serving your client, and, whether or not that client's ever going to hire another illustrator again, if that client's ever going to hire you again, if they think that the world that they're hiring you to bring them into is cool, rests upon your shoulders. And we can have our own styles as much as we want, and we can really be like, this is how I work, you can take it or leave it. At the end of the day, we are the ambassadors to this world for a lot of people. And I think how well you build relationships with people and how welcoming you are to your clients into the world that we live in is equally as important as being able to do the work at the level that your clients expect you to do it at.
Excellent point. For everybody watching, please make sure that you're following Dan on Instagram, social media. Also, if you're looking for some tattoo work, you live in LA, California, or you want to fly in, hit him up. Obviously,
Please,
seems
yes.
like not only just a great artist, but a great dude. And like, that's what you want when you're getting tattoo work. You want somebody you can talk with, you feel comfortable with. And I definitely can vouch for that just based off this conversation.
Thank you. I'm fun to work with.
Really appreciate your time, man. This is a ton of fun. Just stay on for a minute, and I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. Thank you again for having me on it. Again, it really is a big honor to get to chat with you about this, and your legacy for the guests that you've had on here is a very, very high standard, and it is really a big honor to be considered within that group of people. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, appreciate that, man. For everybody, thank you again. See you in a couple weeks.